It all began on my 6th birthday, back in the dim, cramped orphanage I called home. The old matron told me to make a wish, and with all my heart, I wished to find my mom and dad. And when I woke up the next morning, my wish had somehow, miraculously, come true. I was a child. I didn't understand concepts like parallel worlds or transmigration. All I knew was that from that day forward, I had a family, and for 12 years, I was happy. But as I grew older, I realized this world I'd been brought to was hiding a terrible secret. Now, a teenager, I was just trying to get through a normal day, rushing and worried I might be late, when out of nowhere, a man in striped pajamas sprints right into my path, sending us both flying. My bike clatters to the pavement in a twisted heap. I try to ask if he's okay, but the man just scrambles on the ground, screaming that monsters are everywhere. He grabs me, his face twisted in pure terror, screaming that they'll eat me. Monsters? I have no idea what this lunatic is talking about, but there's a desperate conviction in his eyes that sends a chill down my spine. He points frantically up the side of a tall, dilapidated building. For just a split second, I think I see a flicker of movement high above. Was that real? Or am I just seeing things now, too? He grabs me again, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper, telling me not to trust anything. But his warning is cut short as a tranquilizer dart sinks into his neck. Before I can react, men in uniforms swarm the alley, telling me not to be afraid. They say he's a dangerous patient who escaped from the mental hospital, and just like that, they drag him away. I try to stop them, my gut screaming that something isn't right here. I glance back at the alley, absolutely certain I wasn't just seeing things. Then I catch a glimpse of a cat, but with tiny feathered wings sprouting from its back. One of the men drives me away, telling me to forget it, and that he'll take me to school. The sky opens up, and a single thought echoes in my mind. Are there really monsters in this world? It reminds me of a memory I've long since buried, something I saw when my grandpa passed away. I remember peeking into his room that night, seeing a terrifying, shadowy beast with claws. The next day, they carried his body away, and my parents told me it was all just a bad dream. My thoughts are shattered by my teacher's voice, demanding I stand and answer a question. I'm completely lost, but a gentle tug on my hoodie from the girl behind me, Wei Wei, breaks my daze. She whispers the answer to me, and I quickly stand up to tell the teacher. Of course, he's not an idiot, and asks if Wei Wei was feeding me the answers during an exam. And just like that, we're both sentenced to cleaning duty after school. As the sun sets, I apologize for getting her into trouble, but she just smiles, saying it's fine since I've always looked out for her. Her expression turns serious as she brings up the attack from this morning, worried about me. She tells me to remember I have her, and my heart skips a beat. We've known each other since we were kids, and in this quiet classroom, I finally lean in. But our moment is shattered by a deliberate cough from the doorway. It's Qingling, Wei Wei's best friend, here to tell her the head teacher is looking for her. With a quick goodbye, Wei Wei dashes out of the classroom, leaving me standing there. The moment she's gone, Qingling casually asks me about the mental patient I encountered. I tell her I'm fine, just a little upset that my brand new bike got destroyed in the process. She smirks, teasing that I must have been scared, which is why I was so out of it I got detention with Wei Wei. Hopping off the desk, her tone changes, demanding I tell her the details, because she loves strange things. She gets uncomfortably close, her eyes locked on mine, repeating that she's very interested. My head is spinning. This isn't like her at all. Qingling is usually so aloof and distant. Before I can even react, her hand is pressing against my chest. She leans in even closer, whispering that I can confide in her because she cares about me. Then she puts a finger to my lips, trapping me against the wall, leaving me utterly speechless. My mind, short circuits, completely overwhelmed. Wait, does she actually like me? I try to reason with her, stammering that she and Wei Wei are supposed to be good friends. But her expression freezes. She's heard footsteps approaching, and they're getting closer. It's Wei Wei, standing right outside, wondering where the teacher who called for her has gone. Qingling recovers instantly, explaining the teacher just wanted to remind us about cleaning duty. She says her goodbyes and leaves, and I let out a massive sigh of relief that Wei Wei saw nothing. Later that evening, Wei Wei and I walk along a narrow path leading into a dark, ominous forest. She tries to get my mind off things, reminding me of our plans for a picnic and a movie on Saturday. But a sudden sound from the trees snaps me back to the present, and she asks if I'm okay. I turn to her, trying to apologize for being so distracted, but my head is still spinning. She tells me that seeing me so troubled makes her sad too, her voice full of concern. I finally break, grabbing her hands and admitting I have some frightening theories about what's happening. My voice trembles as I confess the awful truth. I feel like there are monsters living among us. Haunting visions flash through my mind of grotesque figures with scaly, writhing limbs. I describe how they're always watching, always peeping from the shadows. Just like that man in the striped pajamas. Wei Wei gasps, covering her mouth in what looks like pure, unadulterated horror. I tell her I don't know what's real anymore, but I beg her to be careful, no matter what. But instead of fear, her expression softens, and she calmly tells me she believes every word. She believes in the monster arms I saw, she says, as her own hand transforms into a scaly claw on my shoulder. And in the reflection of my eye, I see her true face, a wide, monstrous grin filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. She mockingly asks if this monstrous form is what he was talking about, and all he can do is choke out her name. The monster that was once Wei Wei reveals he's the first awakener she's ever met, and she'll be sure to remember him. Cold terror grips Gao Yang. His entire reality has just shattered into a million pieces. Her grotesque face looms over him as his consciousness begins to fade. Is this how he dies? His vision blurs, the world around him dimming as his strength gives out. But then, a brilliant light erupts from his chest, a strange, glowing artifact he recognizes from when he first arrived here. A sliver of hope cuts through the fear. He has to touch it, activate it somehow. He desperately reaches for the object, but her grip is unbreakable as she raves about how delicious his blood smells. Her face contorts into a twisted parody of love, whispering how much she likes him. She wants to devour him slowly, and with a flash of panicked genius, he agrees just don't squeeze too tight, or he won't be fresh. His fingers finally make contact, and a system interface bursts to life, showing his name and a single talent, luck. But the system informs him his talent is passive and can't be used, and a wave of pure despair washes over his face. Just as quickly, the screen vanishes, leaving him once again face to face with the monstrous Wei Wei and her blood-stained teeth. She starts dragging him through the woods, her prize secured, but both of them freeze as something changes in the air. Suddenly, Hez on his knees, staring down at her crumpled form on the ground, wondering how Hez possibly still alive. But her eyes snap open, glaring up at him with a possessive fury, demanding to know why he is hers. Before he can answer, a new sound fills the air as a firm hand grips the hilt of a glowing, futuristic blade. With a flash of light, another figure stands over the monster. It's Qing Ling, his other classmate, holding the sword. She calmly stands there, the strange weapon dematerializing as Gao Yang stares in utter disbelief. The shock finally hits him as he realizes he's just witnessed a genuine superhuman ability. She warns him to ask no questions and go home, revealing she's already disabled all nearby surveillance. Qing Ling presses him for confirmation, insisting that tonight had nothing to do with him. Completely overwhelmed, Gao Yang can only stammer out an agreement. With his compliance secured, she leaps away, disappearing into the dark, rainy woods with incredible speed. He somehow makes it back to his apartment, the night's impossible events swirling in his mind. Under the hot water of the shower, he questions his own sanity. Was Wei Wei really a monster? Still dazed, he walks into his bedroom, unable to make sense of what has happened to his world. But a sudden noise from the window snaps him out of his thoughts. He whirls around to find Qing Ling perched on his windowsill, having followed him home. Gao Yang immediately confronts her, demanding to know what happened to Wei Wei. Was it a mutation or some kind of virus? But Qing Ling has no time for his questions, simply telling him to stop talking. Before he can react, she casually tosses her jacket aside, leaving him completely speechless. She climbs onto his bed, pinning him down as his mind scrambles to understand what she wants. Leaning in close, she asks an incredibly bizarre question, whether he likes men or women. After he stammers out his preference, she gives him a seductive look and simply says, "All right, come then." Gao Yang is utterly lost, asking what in the world she could possibly mean. She scoffs at his apparent innocence, but his internal alarm is blaring. This is moving way too fast. It has to be a trap. He instinctively puts a hand up to stop her, convinced that whatever this is, it won't work. Qing Ling pauses, a flicker of amusement in her eyes as she notes how cautious he is. The two are now locked in a strange standoff on his bed, with her clearly holding all the cards. She gently traces a finger down his chest, asking if this is more to his liking. If he really dislikes her, she purrs, he can just imagine someone else's face instead. And with that, Gao Yang's poor brain just completely short-circuits. His mind races. Is this an act to lower his guard? Is she some kind of monster? He shoves a hand forward, finally managing to tell her to stop this madness. But she catches his wrist with ease, a smirk on her face as she notes his obvious physical reaction. Then, just as suddenly as it began, she pulls away and gets off the bed. She casually puts her jacket back on, declaring the test over, leaving him to demand what that was all about. Without a word, she places a cold, hard object on the bed beside him. It's a dagger, a glowing, high-tech blade, materializing out of thin air as a gift. Still reeling, Gao Yang demands to know if she was actually trying to kill him, but her answer is chillingly vague. She explains that his fate hinged entirely on his reaction to her test. With a flick of her wrist, she sends the dagger flying towards him as she finally begins her explanation. The whole invasive ordeal was to confirm one thing. Beasts don't have what humans do down there. His mind flashes back to Wei Wei's horrifying transformation, realizing she was one of these beasts. Qing Ling calmly names the creature he fought a wrath beast, just one of many different types. She paints a grim picture of monsters hiding in plain sight, lurking in classrooms, right beside you and me. Then, as if changing the subject, she tosses him a small vial of advanced healing medicine. Gao Yang catches it, completely amazed that something like this even exists, his view of the world shifting once again. He gazes out the window, clutching the vial, realizing this world holds far more secrets than he ever knew. He sits alone, grappling with the new, horrifying reality. Wei Wei is dead, monsters are real, and he has to somehow act normal for the police. The next morning, he arrives at school, the weight of his secrets heavy on his shoulders. He steps into the classroom only to find it buzzing with rumors. Something happened last night, and Li Wei Wei is suspiciously absent. Before he can even get to his seat, a concerned classmate confronts him, demanding to know where Wei Wei is. He's completely caught off guard, stammering that he doesn't know, but she immediately calls him out, reminding him they were supposed to be together. As she presses him, Gao Yang's mind races. He realizes Qing Ling must have set this up, a public interrogation to clear his name. Playing his part perfectly, he feigns concern, admitting it's strange she hasn't shown up since they went their separate ways. But the speculation is cut short when their teacher enters with a grim announcement for the class. With a heavy heart, he informs them that their classmate, Li Wei Wei, has been murdered, sending a shockwave through the room. He tries to calm the students, explaining the official story. It seems she tragically ran into robbers and was killed. Gao Yang puts on a masterful performance, hiding his face in fake anguish over Wei Wei's death. The teacher silences the classroom whispers, calling both him and Qing Ling to his office for police questioning. Walking down the hall, Gao Yang urgently tries to get their alibi straight, but Qing Ling drops the act, coldly asking what he's even talking about now that they're alone. Her expression twists into one of accusation as she threatens to report him to the police. He's completely thrown off. What is this girl's game, and why the sudden change? Before he can process it, she's already calling for an officer, pointing a finger directly at him. A calm-looking detective steps out, deciding it's best if they tell their stories separately. He calls for Gao Yang to come with him first, separating the two of them. A cold dread washes over Gao Yang as he realizes Qing Ling is trying to pin everything on him. Inside the interrogation room, the officer starts casually, asking Gao Yang not to be nervous before pointing out the mark on his face. Gao Yang knows this is a test, every word a potential trap, so he quickly claims it was just a bug bite. The officer plays along with a knowing look, agreeing that there are indeed a lot of mosquitoes out lately. With the small talk over, he gets to the point, bringing up Wei Wei, their close relationship, and her rumored feelings for him. The question sends a chill down Gao Yang's spine, as a twisted memory of her monstrous form flashes in his mind. Was it liking, or just desire? The officer then presents a critical inconsistency. Gao Yang was seen walking with her, but he didn't escort her all the way home. Leaning forward, the detective's casual demeanor evaporates as he demands an explanation for this strange behavior. Gao Yang feels the pressure mounting, the sweat beading on his neck as he scrambles for a plausible answer. He offers a prepared lie. Wei Wei's family was strict, and she told him not to bother so they wouldn't nag her about academics. The officer nods, jotting it down in his notebook and murmuring that the reason seems plausible enough for now. Feigning guilt, Gao Yang asks the officer if Wei Wei would still be alive if he had just walked her home. The officer gives a vague reply about life's unpredictability, and Gao Yang can tell his story isn't fully believed. To shift the focus, he asks about the surveillance footage, certain it must have captured the culprit. But Officer Huang delivers the bad news. The cameras on that specific road conveniently malfunctioned that night. Gao Yang acts shocked at the coincidence, privately relieved that Qing Ling must have handled it. The officer sighs, admitting the case is cold, premeditated, likely by someone familiar, but with no leads. He ends the questioning, placing a hand on Gao Yang's shoulder and telling him it's okay to mourn. But Gao Yang can't afford to cry. He must stay calm to survive, locking his feelings away as he stares at Wei Wei's portrait. Later, at the funeral home, the nightmare feels all too real as he stands amongst the mourners. Lost in thought about Wei Wei's two identities, a hand suddenly grabs his, and he turns to see Qing Ling has found him. Finding a quiet corner, Qing Ling gets a glass of water and asks him what the police said. He recounts the basics, then questions her own performance wasn't screaming to report him a little over the top. Taking a slow sip, she asks him a strange question. Had he met her before? Gao Yang is utterly lost until she clarifies she's talking about her other personality. It all clicks into place, a split personality. That explains her erratic behavior at the hospital. She explains that to survive, she had to lie even to herself, which caused another persona to emerge. This other personality is like a sister, also named Qing Ling, who sometimes acts on her own. He stares back, struggling to process the bombshell she just dropped. Could he possibly trust this? She challenges his skepticism, asking who else he can rely on, and reveals a terrifying fact about their world. 1 in 10,000 people is a beast, and the statistic sends his mind spiraling back to why it had to be Wei Wei. Qing Ling's eyes are cold as she corrects him. He has it all backwards. It's not 1 in 10,000 people who is a beast, it's the other way around. Gao Yang stumbles back in shock as she tells him nearly everyone he knows is a monster. His mind fractures, flashing back to a childhood surrounded by smiling, grotesque figures he once called family. He desperately tries to find a flaw in her logic. If that were true, he'd already be dead. But she calmly explains the chilling truth. Beasts ignore normal humans. They only hunt the awakened. He grabs his head, overwhelmed by the horror of it all. But Qing Ling admits she doesn't know why. Suddenly, a hand slaps against the door, breaking the tense silence. They both turn, startled, as a man's voice cuts in, asking what they're talking about. A stranger with his hair tied back steps into view, his eyes locked on them, demanding to know about these beasts. Gao Yang breaks into a cold sweat, his mind scrambling for an excuse. Qing Ling shares his alarm. They've been caught completely off guard. She realizes with dread that he's been listening from outside the door this whole time. Gao Yang knows running is futile. Outing themselves as different would be suicide. The man's gaze narrows, pressing them on why they've suddenly gone silent. Panic floods Gao Yang's thoughts. They're cornered, with no easy way out. But Qing Ling quickly feigns a smile, addressing the man as Officer Huang, a desperate attempt to play dumb. The officer explains he's just investigating Wei Wei's case, his movements casual as he grabs a drink. Then he turns, his expression unreadable, and asks them to elaborate on the beasts he overheard. Behind his back, Qing Ling's hand crackles with power, and Gao Yang understands there's no talking their way out of this. But thinking fast, Gao Yang throws on a disarming smile, claiming Monster Age is just a game Wei Wei used to love. Qing Ling quickly backs him up, confirming they were just talking about things their friend liked. Officer Huang's expression softens slightly, seemingly accepting their flimsy excuse. As he walks away, however, he leaves them with a cryptic warning to enjoy their games while they still can. The second the door closes, Qing Ling exhales, her nerves shot from the spy movie tension. She grabs Gao Yang, telling him not to celebrate just yet. There are 2 dangerous possibilities. Either Officer Huang is a chieftain, a bloody beast who is testing them, or he's something called a chicksing. Gao Yang has no idea what she's talking about, the term's completely foreign to him. She explains that while chieftain are greedy monsters, chicksing are special, they believe they're human, and their minds automatically filter out anything that contradicts that belief. A wave of understanding hits Gao Yang. If the officer is a chicksing, then they might actually be in the clear. But Qing Ling isn't so sure, speculating that if he's a chieftain, he's a greedy one. He wouldn't want to share the 100+ people here, giving Gao Yang a shocking realization. She continues, explaining this gives them a chance to kill the other monsters and silence them for good. Gao Yang recalls his initial reluctance to go along with such a ruthless cover-up, but he decided to trust her, remembering a conversation they had in a cafe not long ago. He had nervously asked her a personal question, and she simply told him to go ahead. He wanted to know if, besides him, she had any other companions she worked with. Her story was heavy. She'd awakened 10 years ago, and the 2 others she knew both died. He looked at her, suddenly understanding the immense pressure she'd been all alone. But she corrects him softly. There were 2 others, she says, and her sister. With their target, Officer Huang, finally off work, it was time to move. He leaves the station, completely unaware that he's being watched. He takes a quiet route home through a dark, secluded park, a perfect hunting ground. As they watch from the bushes, Qing Ling suddenly asks Gao Yang about his awakened talent. He stammers, admitting it seems to be some kind of weak, passive ability. Internally, he desperately pleads with his system, asking what good a useless talent is. But the system is no help, denying him any upgrades due to a lack of luck points. Qing Ling sighs, deciding she wasn't relying on him anyway, and tells him to just be a distraction. Resigned to his fate, Gao Yang thinks this so-called lucky talent is anything but. He steps out from the shadows, nervously waving and calling out to the officer. Officer Huang turns, his gaze sharp and suspicious, demanding to know who this stranger is. Gao Yang pulls down his mask with a practiced smile, claiming he suddenly remembered some clues. The officer seems to take the bait, asking him to hurry up and tell him what he knows. But in an instant, his expression hardens. Something about this feels very wrong. He glances down, noticing the faint shadows of others lurking nearby. Realizing this kid set him up. With practiced speed, his hand darts inside his suit jacket. He draws a pistol, his calm demeanor replaced by deadly focus. A muzzle flash erupts in the darkness as he fires without a second's hesitation, but he's not aiming at Gao Yang, he's firing into the trees, forcing the hidden ambushers to scatter. The officer stands his ground, gun steady, warning them that he is not to be underestimated. Gao Yang can only watch in disbelief, his simple plan spiraling out of control. From the darkness, Qingling launches herself into the fray. The real fight has begun, but the officer is already moving, deftly weaving past a volley of throwing knives. A smirk crosses his face. He realizes their target isn't just the boy. Another rustle from the bushes confirms his suspicion she's not alone. The masked woman closes the distance with blinding speed, a blur of motion. She soars right over him, trying to take him by surprise from above. But it was all a feint. He pivots, gun aimed, having waited for her to expose an opening. With a flash of steel and a sharp clang, she deflects the bullet just inches from her face. She lands, annoyed but unharmed, as the officer coolly compliments her incredible reflexes. The officer smirks, boasting that he's been a shooting champion for 5 years straight. His eyes narrow, tracking his target with chilling precision. But instead of firing at her, a single shot rings out, blasting a flock of birds from the trees. He uses the chaos as a screen, forcing the masked girl to flip acrobatically to find a new angle. Watching from the bushes, Gao Yang realizes this officer is far tougher than they expected. He worries that the gunshot will attract far worse things than the police. But as he shifts his position, his hand brushes against something strange. A sudden gust of wind picks up, carrying with it an unnatural stillness. He sees the officer's plan. He's using the environment itself to obstruct her line of sight. A wave of terror hits him as he realizes the trap, screaming out a warning to Qingling. And just like that, Gao Yang explodes from the tree line, creating his own wave to obscure the officer's vision. The man is completely blindsided, caught in the sudden chaos. But that one moment of hesitation is all Qingling needs, bursting through the spray like a phantom. A bullet screams past her cheek, but her eyes are locked on the target, completely unfazed. The officer just barely twists out of the way, his clumsy dodge leaving him wide open. Before he can even recover his footing, she's on him, her blade flashing with deadly intent. With a sharp crack, her knife connects not with flesh, but with the steel of his pistol, slicing it apart. The fight is over. The disarmed officer is on the ground with a cold blade pressed to his throat. But instead of panic, his hand begins to glow with an ethereal light as he makes a startling claim. He says she's not a chieftain, a reveal that freezes both Qingling and the shocked Gao Yang in their tracks. Officer Huang, impressed, asks how she could have possibly known his secret. Qingling calmly explains his mistake. A true chieftain would have blocked with their body, not a gun. Beasts trust their own flesh and bone, while humans instinctively rely on what they consider sturdy tools. With a wry smile, he admits that he's an awakened, leaving Gao Yang sputtering that they've been played. The conflict resolved, the unlikely trio now finds themselves walking through Gong Alley later that night. Seated at a restaurant, Officer Huang savors his meal, commenting on how great it is to dine with fellow awakened. Gao Yang nearly chokes, frantically telling him to shut up before someone overhears them. But the officer just burns his tongue on the hot food, completely unbothered by the secrecy. He smugly reassures them, explaining the old man running the place is a chicksing who only hears what he wants to. And just as he says, a quick check with the owner reveals he heard nothing but an order for beer. Officer Huang smirks, clarifying that with a chicksing around, they can finally speak freely. Finally getting some answers, Gao Yang asks if that whole life or death situation was just a test. Huang admits he wanted to see their skills, though he hadn't counted on Qingling also being awakened. She briefly looks up from her noodles just to make one thing clear. She is not his girlfriend. And with that crucial detail out of the way, she dives right back into her food, ignoring the boys completely. The light mood vanishes as Huang takes a drink, asking if Gao Yang recalls the man he killed at the hospital. The memory flashes back the crazed man in pajamas. Huang reveals he wasn't insane. He was an awakened with the ability to see others like him. That man had identified Gao Yang, so to protect him, Huang had to permanently silence him. But as this heavy truth sinks in, Qingling, having finished her bowl, asks if they're going to eat theirs. Gao Yang is speechless at her timing, while Huang just smiles, amused by their chaotic little group. Qingling, bowl still in hand, suddenly demands that Officer Huang explain what these talents are. Amused by her forwardness, Huang happily agrees to give them a proper lecture on the subject. The scene shifts into a mental classroom as he explains that talents are abilities acquired upon awakening. He uses Qingling as his prime example, deducing she possesses two. Sequence 32, the talent of Knife God, and Sequence 20, the talent of Metal. Gao Yang, baffled, asks how he could possibly know that. Huang explains that her control over flying knives pointed to metal, while her sheer destructive power screamed knife god. Impressed, Gao Yang praises his knowledge, but Huang cuts him off, revealing there are 199 known talents, ranked from strongest to weakest. The horrible realization dawns on Gao Yang: if lower is better, his luck talent must be ranked dead last at 199. Snapping back to reality, he collapses onto the table in despair as Qingling demands the full talent list from Huang. Huang looks at them with a calculating gaze, offering them the list in exchange for one simple favor: they have to help him kill someone. The words "kill someone" echo in the neon-lit alley as Huang leads them away. He quickly corrects himself: it's not a person he needs help with, but a beast. Qingling immediately questions the logic. How could they possibly deal with those monsters? But Huang is the picture of calm, promising no harm will come to them if they just follow his instructions. He reminds them of their harsh reality orphans in a world of beasts, who need every scrap of information to survive. The friendly demeanor fades as he demands their answer, right here and now. Qingling, ever decisive, immediately accepts the deal, and Gao Yang reluctantly agrees as well. He reasons that Huang has saved him before, and this is their best chance to gain an edge. Huang hands over a folded paper with numbered steps, to be opened in order after school tomorrow. As he walks away, he leaves them with one final, chilling reminder. In this world, they could die at any time. The next day, after evening study, Gao Yang waits under the city's neon glow, wondering where Qingling could be. Suddenly, a hand grabs his arm, pulling him from his thoughts. It's Qingling, already one step ahead, telling him to change out of his school uniform. He takes the clothes, a little confused by the sudden order. But then she just turns her back to change right there, and poor Gao Yang nearly has a heart attack. He tries to tell her to be a bit more discreet, but she cuts him off. There's no time for nonsense. Now, disguised in casual clothes and masks, they move through the park, Gao Yang asking how much further. Qingling checks the first note from Huang. Their destination is just under a bridge nearby. Her eyes scan the area, noticing all the couples enjoying the evening. She turns to a bewildered Gao Yang and tells him to hold on to her. They need to blend in. He's flustered, but can't help thinking she smells good as he holds her close. But Qingling's mind is already on the mission, her eyes fixed on the Qingyang Bridge. She quickly locates their target in the water below, noting that it's a bit far. Turning back to Gao Yang, she gives him a very strange command. Hug me. Completely bewildered, he stammers out an okay, asking how exactly she wants him to do it. Like the Titanic scene, she says. A specific pose for a specific purpose. He hesitantly places his hands on her waist, still processing the bizarre request. As they strike the pose, he feels an unexpected wave of romance wash over him, but she snaps him out of it, telling him he's holding on way too tight. With her aim now perfect, she activates her power, pulling a metal case from the depths. She struggles with the weight, explaining her talent is still too low level for this. But with a final heave of her power, the metal case bursts from the water's surface. It floats down as Gao Yang gapes in shock, his mind reeling. Talents have levels? Once it lands, he cautiously asks what could possibly be inside. She flips the latches, revealing a powerful, high-tech sniper rifle. His system immediately activates, running a diagnostic scan on the weapon. For one luck point, he identifies it as an anti-material rifle. So this was Officer Huang's plan all along. With the weapon secured, Qingling is already moving on to their next objective. She turns to him with an air of authority and says it's time for them to get a room. He follows in a daze, only to find himself standing in front of a love hotel, completely bewildered. The receptionist, completely absorbed in his game, barely looks up as Qingling requests a specific room. He gives them a sleazy wink, confirming the last luxury suite is all theirs. But just as Qingling pushes Gao Yang forward to get it done, the clerk asks for their IDs. Suddenly, a furious voice cuts through the lobby, screaming Gao Yang's name, and our boy freezes in pure panic. His cover is blown, or so he thinks, until he turns to see his friend, Wang Zikai. This is Gao Yang's rich, spoiled buddy, who's apparently been taking a break from life by playing video games, and right now, he's accusing them of being sneaky, demanding to know why they're at a hotel with Qingling. Thinking fast, Gao Yang plays into the misunderstanding, throwing an arm around her and confirming they're getting a room. The reality of the situation hits Wang Zikai like a truck, shattering his entire worldview. He grabs Gao Yang, absolutely devastated, asking how he could betray his childhood sweetheart Wei Wei so soon after her passing. Gao Yang tries to drag Qingling away, promising his friend he'll explain everything later. But the betrayal quickly morphs into pure disbelief for Wang Zikai. His buddy actually got a room. Then, a darker thought hits him. How dare Gao Yang get a girlfriend before he does? He storms the front desk, demanding to know which room they went to, but the clerk tries to refuse. That was the wrong move. Wang Zikai gets physical, and the terrified clerk immediately spills the beans. Room 501. Not satisfied, he demands the room right next door, 601, to keep an eye on them. Meanwhile, our duo swipes their keycard, finally getting into their room. Gao Yang thinks they're safe, but Qingling tells him he's being far too simple-minded. She explains that with Wang Zikai knowing, the rumor will spread, so their couple act must be flawless. A stunned Gao Yang asks just how they're supposed to do that, the implication hanging heavily in the air. Without warning, Qingling grabs him by the collar, pulling him in close. His mind goes completely blank as she presses her lips against his. For a moment, he's just frozen, stunned by the sudden turn of events. She whispers for him to hold the pose for the hallway camera, and he stammers that this is his first kiss. As she pulls back, she calmly admits that it's her first time too. Inside the very pink room, he asks what's next, and she says they must do what all couples do here. Just as his imagination starts running wild, his phone buzzes, breaking the tension. It's a barrage of texts from Wang Zikai, warning him that women are a distraction. He stares at the messages, realizing his friend is right, he needs to keep a level head. So, Gao Yang sits on the bed and begins a deep meditation, trying to purge all worldly desires. But just as he finds his center, Qingling announces she's taking a shower, and his focus is utterly shattered. The sound of running water echoes from the bathroom, a new and far more difficult trial for his resolve. He struggles to maintain his composure, fighting off a nosebleed as he reminds himself that the greatest demons appear on the highest paths. And then she emerges, wrapped only in a towel, a vision he internally labels a seductress sent to ruin his cultivation. She sits beside him and asks an innocent question about a nearby item, but his mind immediately goes to the gutter. Flustered, Gao Yang stammers, trying to remind her that this is all just supposed to be an act. He insists they don't have to actually do anything, just make it look convincing for their pursuers. For a moment, he breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he's cleared up the misunderstanding. But Qingling leans in close, seeing right through his naive hesitation. She tells him to wake up. His old world is gone, and in this new hell, he has to abandon such useless thoughts to survive. Her hand grips his chin, forcing him to meet her gaze as she commands him to survive by any means. The alternative, she warns with cold certainty, is a swift and merciless death. Later, as they lie in bed for their charade, he can only reflect on how their entire world has been destroyed. With an alarm set for the early morning, their plan is locked in. The moment arrives, and Gao Yang wakes her, announcing that it's time to act. But her eyes snap open. Turns out she's been awake for a while, ever the professional. They move to the window without a word, Qingling expertly setting up a high-caliber sniper rifle. As she sights in on their unseen target, he finally asks the million-dollar question, who are they killing? In response, Gao Yang simply holds out a card, telling her to see for herself. The card lays out the mission with chilling clarity. At 6 o'clock, kill the woman next to him. As he burns the note, Gao Yang can only grimly respect the police officer's cunning. While the evidence turns to ash, Qingling confirms she has the target in her sights. He moves in, telling her he wants to take a look for himself. Through the scope, he sees a couple out for a jog, but something about the woman seems familiar. He pulls back from the scope, the horrible realization dawning on him it's Officer Huang's wife. His mind races, she must have discovered her husband's awakened identity, and now he's using them to silence her. A dark sense of irony washes over Gao Yang as he grasps the nature of their predetermined fate. They're all caught in the same cruel loop. Kill the person closest to you, or be killed by them. Qingling closes her eyes, knowing sentimentality has no place in this world. Her grip tightens on the rifle as she begins the final countdown. Her finger squeezes the trigger, ready to end it all. But before she can fire, a different shot rings out, and it's Wang Zikai who collapses. She looks up from her scope, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. There he is, hanging limp from the window frame, a smoking hole blown clean through his chest. Gao Yang can only stare in disbelief, wondering why this absolute idiot chose now to show up. Turns out, it all began half an hour ago with a spectacular gaming losing streak. After 10 consecutive losses, Wang Zikai completely snapped, blaming Gao Yang for his suffering. He'd been hearing strange noises all night, and his gamer brain smelled a conspiracy. The building's walls were thin, sure, but he knew Gao Yang, and this just didn't add up. So, he put on his thinking cap, convinced there was a deeper plot at play. After all, if his buddy wasn't busy with a girl, why wasn't he answering any of his messages? The horrifying truth dawned on him. They were grinding levels without him. For a gamer, this was the ultimate betrayal, and he vowed to expose their secret. So he grabbed a rope to play spy, scaling the building at the worst possible moment. But his grand entrance was cut short, as his foot slipped on the ledge. Which brings us back to the present, with our heroes caught in the disastrous aftermath. Qingling examines the body, noting with cold logic, that he was shot through the heart yet somehow still breathing. This isn't a miracle to her. It's a warning sign. He's a beast, and they need to put him down before he transforms. But Gao Yang grabs her hand, insisting they can't just leave a body here, especially since the guy seems like a clueless fool. She whips around, snarling that if he's a chiefin, that cluelessness is a mask, and he could kill them all in his final moments. Seeing his hesitation, she shoves the knife into his hand, challenging him to take responsibility if he's so sure. The cold steel feels familiar, and Gao Yang is thrown back into his past, remembering the day he had to cut ties with his old life. He recalls the blood, the monsters, and the vow he made to survive, even if it meant becoming shameless. Steeling his resolve, he raises the knife over his friend, whispering a final, bitter goodbye. But just as the deed is done, a sharp voice cuts through the tension, and they both turn to see they're not alone. Both Gao Yang and Qingling freeze, staring at the door as the voice rings out. Peeking through the peephole is the hotel clerk, frantically explaining he's also an awakener and saw everything. Gao Yang questions if they can trust him, but Qingling reasons that a true beast would have just charged in. With a moment of tense decision, he twists the doorknob, letting the man inside. The clerk rushes past them, making a beeline for their fallen friend on the floor. He places a hand over the wound, declaring his intent to cure him as a brilliant golden light begins to shine. He introduces himself as Han Shujun, a healer, relieved that he might not have to survive this alone. Gao Yang demands to know how he saw them, and Han Shujun admits to installing cameras purely for research, of course. But his healing is cut short as the cold, sharp edge of a sword presses against his throat. Qingling stops him cold, warning that a beast can't be saved, but he desperately pleads it might be a different type. She clarifies the stakes. If he's a wrath beast, then they're all done for. But Gao Yang grabs her arm, desperately pleading for her to let the healer save Wang. Qingling shoots him a cold glare, questioning his sudden change of heart. Is he still calling that thing a friend? He insists they have to take the gamble. If Wang dies in their room, they're all trapped. She shoves his hand away, unconvinced. A living beast is a far bigger danger than a corpse. With no more time for talk, she brings her sword down for the killing blow. But Gao Yang lunges forward, stopping the blade with his bare hands as he screams for the healer to start. Stunned, she warns him that if he insists on getting in her way, she will kill him too. He doesn't even flinch, his palms bleeding as he holds the sharp steel at bay. He looks her dead in the eyes, remembering their friends, reminding her that before they mutate, they are still family. He pleads with Qingling, wanting to give both them and their friend a chance. But she's heard enough talk, shoving him aside with a contemptuous flick of her arm. With him out of the way, she turns her cold fury on the terrified healer on the floor. Just as her sword is about to fall, the doorknob turns, and the door creaks open. Everyone freezes in place. A bloody, bizarre tableau for whoever just walked in. A hotel cleaning lady peers in, confused, wondering why room 405 isn't empty yet. Gao Yang scrambles for an excuse, telling the auntie she must have gotten the room wrong. But then, his system flashes. A special bonus triggered a 60 times lucky point multiplier. The healer quickly shoos the woman out, telling her not to worry and to come back later. As the door closes, Gao Yang grabs him, his voice laced with dread that Cleaner is a wrath beast. The healer is frozen stiff, unable to process the warning as Gao Yang instinctively throws up his arms. The cleaning lady's face splits into a horrifying grin, her arm twisting into a monstrous claw as she realizes her luck. 3. Awakened all in one room. Her back rips open, her uniform tearing as leathery wings and sharp spikes burst from her flesh. The transformation completes, revealing a hulking blue demon, triumphantly holding its own severed human head as it roars that they are all its prey. But a new figure steps forward. Qingling stands her ground, sword in hand, internally noting this beast is on another level. She shouts a single, desperate command to the two boys behind her. Find an opportunity and run. The demon swipes with blinding speed, but Qingling is already a blur, dodging the massive claws. She ducks and weaves under another vicious attack, the air crackling with the force of the near miss. Planting her foot firmly, she uses the monster's own momentum to launch herself into the air. Soaring above the beast, she raises her sword, preparing to rain down justice from above. Her blade sinks deep into the demon's shoulder. A powerful, direct strike. She puts all her weight into it, but the monster just grunts, admitting she's got some strength. But it mockingly growls that her power is still far from enough. With a single flex of its muscles, Qingling is sent flying backward through the air. She lands hard inside their hotel room, stunned by its sheer resilience as Han Shujun looks on in terror. Glancing back, she sees the deep gash on the demon's shoulder already sealing itself shut. The boys scream, a desperate warning for her to watch out for its tail and dodge. But it's too late. The massive appendage smashes through the window, slamming into her with crushing force. Her sword is ripped from her grasp, clattering helplessly onto the floor. Qingling is left sprawled and wounded amidst a sea of shattered glass, the tables completely turned. Even while bleeding, Qingling pushes Gao Yang away, urging him to find a chance to run. The demon, however, has no intention of letting its prey escape, its grotesque face a mask of pure malice. With a guttural roar, it declares their fate sealed, bringing its claws down to finish them off. But Gao Yang refuses to abandon her, diving in front to shield her with his own body. Suddenly, Officer Huang appears out of nowhere, intercepting the devastating blow just in the nick of time. A fire ignites in Gao Yang's eyes, a defiant glare against the impossible odds. Across the room, their healer Han Shujun can only tremble in the corner, utterly useless. Gao Yang knows this is bad. They can't win ahead. On fight, they'll just be worn down. His eyes scan the wreckage for an opening, a plan, anything, and then he sees it. Snatching a large pink pillow, he hurls it as a distraction, yelling for the ugly freak to come and get him. The distraction fails spectacularly as the demon effortlessly swats Gao Yang aside, sending him crashing into the wall. With their main protector down, Officer Huang screams at the cowering healer to get over to Qingling before they all die. But Han Shujun can only stare, completely frozen in terror. He stammers pathetically, admitting he's too scared to cross the room. Seeing the healer as a lost cause, Officer Huang takes matters into his own hands, wrapping the beast in strange, binding energy. The demon, however, is simply too strong, shattering the restraints with a deafening roar. From her position on the floor, Qingling can only watch in horror as the monster looms over them once more. While Han Shujun spirals into despair, convinced he's done for, Gao Yang grits his teeth, forcing himself to think. His eyes dart around the room and lock onto a set of live power cables from a destroyed vacuum cleaner. An idea forms. He yells at the useless healer to snap out of it and throw him the nearby knife. Finding an ounce of courage, Han Shujun scrambles for the blade, convinced he can help. The demon, however, is lost in its own bloodlust, paying them no mind. From the ground, Officer Huang watches as the knife is finally tossed across the room. Gao Yang catches it perfectly, the live wire already crackling in his other hand. With a desperate roar, he leaps towards the monster, ready to execute his all-or-nothing plan. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated resolve as he brings the weapon down. The idea is to connect the live wire to the blade, delivering a massive shock. But in that split second, a horrifying realization hits him. The cable is too short. The demon's glowing red eye swivels up, catching the flaw in his attack instantly. Frozen mid-air, Gao Yang is completely exposed as the monster mocks his failed attempt. But just as its claws are about to descend, a volley of knives suddenly slams into the demon's back. Gao Yang hits the floor, turning to see Qingling, who used the last of her strength to save him. She's slumped against the wall, bleeding and barely conscious, but she's not out of the fight yet. He can only watch in horror, his mind screaming her name as he sees the state she's in. The demon, however, barely even flinches, turning to mock the awakened ones for their pathetic resistance. A wave of despair washes over Gao Yang. Is this really how it ends? So close, yet so far. He grits his teeth, sweat and tears mixing as he refuses to accept this outcome. And in that moment of pure, unyielding will, a notification suddenly flashes in his mind. He survived for 10 minutes, earning enough lucky points to unlock a hidden panel. With a surge of renewed hope, there's only one possible answer. Unlock. The system chimes, a sweet sound of victory in the middle of hell. He's been granted a brand new talent. Phantom. Sequence number 65. It creates a clone for 10 seconds, but it's only tangible for 2. A tiny window of opportunity. A bloody, almost unhinged grin spreads across his face. Finally, a talent that can actually do something. With a guttural roar, he pours every last ounce of his will into his newfound power. Phantom, come out, and a digital echo of himself flickers into existence. The clone solidifies, its eyes glowing with an ethereal light, ready for its purpose. But the real Gao Yang is already moving, lunging for the ornate weapon in the demon's grasp. He rips it free, his eyes burning with intensity as he shouts the command. Now, he screams, and his phantom twin obeys, launching itself at the stunned demon. The phantom's attack lands true, the blade sinking deep into the demon's monstrous flesh. For a brief, glorious moment, the clone stands triumphant, having pinned the beast. From the sidelines, the injured Officer Huang sees the opening he's created, urging him to finish it now. But the clone's 2 seconds are up. Gao Yang recalls his phantom, just as it begins to fade. With a desperate heave, he drives the real blade home, nailing the creature to the wall. His face is a grim mask of pure hatred and exhaustion, pouring everything into this final push. With a blood-curdling scream, he demands that the monster before him just die. The adrenaline finally recedes, leaving a look of hollow shock on his face. His legs give out, and he collapses to the floor, gasping that it's finally over. Outside, the hotel is silent, giving no hint of the brutal battle that just concluded within. While Qingling is passed out, Han Shujun uses his healing ability on Gao Yang, calling himself the team's healer dad. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he grabs Gao Yang's hands, declaring him his brother and pledging his life to him for the save. He can't stop praising Gao Yang's phantom talent and the flawless kill, as a now conscious Qingling proudly agrees from the bed. But their celebration is cut short when they're startled by another voice, wondering when he woke up. It's Wang Zikai, crouching by the creature's corpse, trying to process if the fight he saw was just a terrible dream. He stands up, demanding to know if they're some kind of superheroes, forcing Gao Yang to ask if he saw everything. Wang Zikai falls silent, a pensive look on his face as he puts the pieces of this impossible situation together. But his train of thought is broken when he notices something wrong with his own body, muttering that he feels strange. Before their very eyes, reptilian scales begin to creep up his arm, a horrifying transformation taking hold. Han Shujun's friendly attitude evaporates, urging the others that they can't let this guy stick around, they have to act now. Qingling immediately steps up, power crackling in her hand, warning everyone to get back before he goes berserk. But before anyone can act, Gao Yang locks eyes with the terrified boy, calmly calling him an evolved human. The very words seem to stop the transformation, as a stunned Wang Zikai can only repeat the phrase in disbelief. Gao Yang smoothly closes the distance, reassuring him that they're all evolved humans, their bodies modified for this fight. He leans in closer, spinning a tale that Wang Zikai is special, a chosen warrior whose powers just haven't awakened yet. The boy's panic evaporates, replaced by a desperate, hopeful question: could that really be true? Gao Yang scoffs, asking if Wang Zikai seriously thought he and Qingling were just here for a casual rendezvous. He explains that keeping his distance was just an act to protect their identities, a secret he was forced to break. Wang Zikai's mind visibly short-circuits, completely unable to cope with the sudden info dump. He stumbles back against the wall, utterly overwhelmed and begging for a moment to process this new reality. But as Gao Yang expected, his story is so flimsy that only a complete idiot would ever fall for it. And Wang Zikai, bless his heart, completely buys it. Suddenly seeing Gao Yang as a selfless hero, he throws his arms around him, declaring it must be fate that they're destined to save the world together. With tears in his eyes, he promises that as the chosen one, he won't let his secret guardian down. Gao Yang can only think one thing: he's forgotten just how stupid this guy is, though maybe that's a good thing. Now fully committed, Wang Zikai whispers that they should lay low until he's strong enough to protect them all. The heroic moment is shattered when Han Shujun nervously points at the demon's body, asking how they'll clean this up. 10 minutes later, 2 agents arrive on the scene to find a covered corpse and a failed mission. This whole situation brings back a memory for Officer Huang of the day he met a nervous healer named Han Shujun, a memory of a simple introduction that would prove far more significant than he knew at the time. Back in the present, Officer Huang eyes the new face with a critical gaze. Wang Zikai, ever the cheerful idiot, beams and introduces the young man as another comrade. Huang cuts to the chase, asking if the area is finally secure now that he's arrived. Gao Yang, still reeling, can only manage a simple confirmation. Yes, it's safe. With the pleasantries over, Huang gets down to business, explaining they faced a killer-type wrath beast, a degraded one at that. This is news to Gao Yang, who didn't even know these monsters had different categories. Huang elaborates. There are 3 types: killers, devourers, and the dreaded horners, who can summon swarms. The realization hits Gao Yang like a truck. They were incredibly lucky. Huang orders the 3 of them to get ready to leave and act normal. He then turns to Han Shujun, telling him that to erase all suspicion, Hell need to be mentally prepared for what's next. Huang calmly lays out the cover story for the blazing building: a simple gas leak and an electrical short. While the restaurant owner wails about his lost business, Gao Yang tries to comfort Han Shujun, who's breaking down. With the mess contained, Qingling tugs on Gao Yang's jacket. It's time for them to head back to school. But the ghost of their friend Wang Zikai appears, asking if he gets a secret base now, maybe one with beautiful women. Zikai then dashes off dramatically, shouting his intent to save the world, much to their exasperation. Walking away, Gao Yang muses that the demons must have low IQs not to go berserk, but Qingling isn't so sure. Her expression hardens. She knows something about that theory is fundamentally wrong. Suddenly, she clutches her head in pain as a car hurtles towards them at an impossible speed. A chilling voice echoes out, a young girl with glowing red eyes calling him brother. She stands there, a sinister doll, declaring she's found out everything and is about to tell the world. Gao Yang freezes, recognizing the girl instantly. His own sister, Gao Xingxin. What is she doing here? He turns to Qingling, the horrible realization dawning on him this must be the sister Officer Huang mentioned. Xingxin stands atop a massive horner, a device capable of notifying all threats within a 1-kilometer radius. Thinking this is a legitimate fight, he tells Qingling to run, claiming he can hold them off for a few seconds. But a crucial detail nags at him. If she's a demon, why hasn't she transformed into her beast form yet? Suddenly, the threat becomes clear, as Xingxin accuses him of finding a girlfriend and booking a love hotel without her consent. She unleashes her fury, comically smashing him into the ground while he desperately tries to explain the misunderstanding. Whipping out her phone, she threatens to expose his shameful deeds on social media and ruin his school life. She's going to have their parents kick him out and sever all ties. Glaring at the photo evidence on her screen, but just as she's about to post, the image flickers and vanishes, leaving her staring at an empty phone in total shock. A woman in a suit calmly orders him to delete the photos, and Gao Yang, seeing no other choice, agrees. But Xingxin is having none of it, screaming at him for trying to destroy the evidence of his crime. He just pats her on the head, treating her like a child and telling her to stop imagining such nonsense. With that settled, he tells the agent he's leaving, dragging a fuming Xingxin who vows to ruin his reputation anyway. The scene shifts, his brilliant solution to her fury being a classic peace offering, a kid's meal. And of course, it works perfectly, her anger melting away as she gushes over a new limited edition toy. He tries to soothe her further, insisting that the whole hotel incident was a complete misunderstanding. He explains that he and Qingling are just friends, busy studying all night for the upcoming exams. Xingxin glares back, not buying it for a second. Who goes to a love hotel to study? He spouts some nonsense about it being an online trend, and to his shock, she actually seems to consider it. He leans in, claiming they're both secret geniuses who pretend to slack off but study like mad. She explains she was excited to show off her new dress, but he was gone and his phone was off. It was his friend, Wang Zikai, who told her where to go to catch him in the act. He tries to calm her down, correcting her choice of words while she sulks about waiting all night. Gao Yang promises that from now on, he'll keep her in the loop about everything. She agrees, and they seal the deal with a pinky promise, the sibling crisis officially averted. Later, Gao Yang arrives back at school, wondering why his classroom is so loud. He steps inside and freezes, his eyes locking onto the last person he expected to see, Wang Zikai. Before he can even process it, Zikai grabs him, and Gao Yang wonders if his friend has a death wish. Zikai pulls him into the hallway, his playful demeanor gone, sternly asking why he didn't stay home like he was told. Zikai offers a flimsy excuse about a teacher, but his smug grin tells Gao Yang he's lying through his teeth. He strolls off, promising not to expose him, but Gao Yang knows his friend is hiding something important. His mind races. Zikai only trusts him and Qingling, so why would he risk coming back to school? Then, the horrifying realization dawns on him. What if Qingling was the one who called him here? Without a second's hesitation, he bolts down the hall, desperate to figure out what she's planning. Elsewhere, Zikai waits on the rooftop, impatiently checking his phone for the secret training with Qingling. Suddenly, Gao Yang appears, yanking him by the collar. Zikai scoffs, thinking this is just about a training session he'll soon dominate. But Gao Yang isn't playing games. He tightens his grip, telling Zikai he's coming with him, now. He starts dragging him away, bluntly informing him that Qingling is busy today, training is cancelled. Zikai's demeanor darkens, and before Gao Yang can react, is thrown back by a sudden, powerful force. And just as things are about to escalate, a new player enters the scene. Qingling, sword in hand. Zikai's eyes light up. He thinks his fierce trainer has finally arrived, begging her to train him hard. Gao Yang quickly tells him to sit tight and just watch for now, an order the clueless boy happily accepts. He turns to Qingling, his voice low and urgent, trying to pull her aside to talk. But she's not interested in conversation, shutting him down by pointing her sword directly at his throat. With cold fury in her eyes, she lunges forward without a single word of warning. Gao Yang barely dodges, still pleading for her to listen to what he has to say. His words mean nothing as she tells him to get lost, punctuating it with a brutal kick to his chest. Hes sent sprawling, but she doesn't even spare him a second glance, her focus already locked on her true target. She leaps from the rooftop towards a terrified Zikai, who finally realizes this training session was a trap for him. But from the rooftop, Gao Yang screams for her to stop. He leaps in front of Zikai, shielding him while trying to explain he has something urgent to say. With a grimace of pure resolve, he dares her to go ahead and attack if she must. Qingling scoffs, her eyes burning with rage as she questions if he's really willing to die for this. Her blade slices forward with killing intent, and passes straight through him, dissolving into a shimmering phantom. She's stunned, her mind racing back. Could it have been at that moment, when she kicked him off the roof? He used her carelessness to make his move. The real Gao Yang is already on the other side, revealing the paper talisman he used. He declares that she's lost, but Qingling isn't broken, a smirk crossing her face as she admits it was a smart move. He calmly lectures her, pointing out that her tunnel vision is her greatest weakness. But Qingling grins, revealing she has more than one trick up her sleeve, as Gao Yang suddenly feels a shift in the air. His eyes widen in disbelief. What now? An invisible force slams into him, sending him careening helplessly across the rooftop. She scoffs at his crumpled form, telling him to go back to class since he clearly can't beat her. Yet he stands up, perfectly calm, and stops her before she can leave, saying he has a question. His composure shatters as he frantically demands to know where Wang Zikai is. They find him just around the corner, knocked out cold on the concrete floor. Gao Yang asks for just 5 minutes, promising a non-negotiable reason why Wang Zikai must live. A reason not to kill a beast? Intrigued, Qingling simply tells him to speak. Gao Yang explains that despite being newly awakened, he's been thinking about one crucial thing. He believes she hasn't survived this long due to strength or caution, but for a different reason entirely. His theory? She must have a second personality that allows her to coexist with beasts without issue. Everything changed when he showed up, because the odds of so many awakened people meeting by chance are impossibly low. Taking her hand, he insists their only path to survival is to stick together, gather intel, and find the truth. He then leans in, revealing he has a plan to reduce their risk of being discovered. Qingling processes his words, her mind racing to connect the dots of his strange logic. And then it clicks. Is he talking about using the lost? That's exactly right. He points to the unconscious Wang Zikai, explaining that keeping this idiot lost around is their perfect cover. It's a smoke bomb. Their group's formation seems completely natural, hiding their true nature in plain sight. Qingling immediately rejects the idea, pointing out that killing Kai would only make them look more suspicious. She reminds him that Wei Wei was his childhood friend and Kai is his current one. Their deaths so close together would be a massive red flag. Her logic is undeniable, and Gao Yang reluctantly agrees, sheathing his blade. As she walks away, he lets out a heavy sigh, relieved he managed to think so quickly on his feet. Later that night, back in his apartment, he finally has a moment to process everything. Lying in bed, he can't help but feel like he's been living on a chaotic roller coaster. Deciding to check his status, he calls up the system and sees he's earned 20 luck points. His luck talent has even leveled up, and he realizes surviving the hotel demon multiplied his gains 60-fold. Without a second thought, he decides to dump all 20 points straight into his luck stat. The gamble pays off. Breaking 100 luck triggers a massive, permanent boost to all his other attributes, including the mysterious spirit power. Just as he's processing his new power, the system dangles another mystery, a talent temple. But when he asks for details, the system coldly denies him and logs off, leaving him to wonder what tomorrow will bring. The next day, he and Qingling report to Officer Huang, ready to explain why they came to the school. Officer Huang sits them down, his expression grim as he asks if they understand the consequences of their mission's failure. But his serious demeanor shatters as he suddenly beams with gratitude, telling them it's a good thing they failed. Confused, they can only listen as he begins to explain a deeply personal problem. His wife has been acting strange. He recalls waking in the dead of night to find her just staring down at him with an unsettling intensity. Other times, he's been disturbed by odd noises coming from the bathroom, adding to his growing unease. He'd always suspected she was one of the lost ones, but her recent behavior is too obvious, too clumsy for a hidden demon. The constant fear and anxiety have worn him down, pushing him to a dark place where he's even considered killing her. He explains that stumbling upon them was the very thing that pushed him to finally take action. And yet, he's so thankful their mission failed, because otherwise, he'd have regretted it for the rest of his life. With a sudden, unnerving grin, Officer Huang drops the bombshell. His wife just told him she's pregnant. Gao Yang's mind grinds to a halt. He thought beasts couldn't reproduce, let alone with humans. He blurts out the questions racing through his head, wondering if beasts even have the ability to procreate at all. Officer Huang dodges the complex biology, instead sharing a story about a man who spied on his hotel's guests. The sheer depth of this new reality overwhelms Gao Yang, who feels like he can't possibly grasp the rules of this world. Cutting through the existential dread, Qingling gets straight to the point, asking what his plan is now. He lights a cigarette, his expression softening as he makes a confession. His first reaction wasn't shock or fear, but the unbelievable, undeniable joy of becoming a father. Taking a slow drag from his cigarette, Officer Huang reveals his decision. He's going to keep the child. Qingling recoils in disbelief, shouting that he must be out of his mind. His wife is a beast. But he just calmly exhales, fully aware of that fact, but she's also his wife, carrying his child. Watching this unfold, Gao Yang realizes that if he were in the same position, he couldn't hurt his family either. Seeing his resolve, Qingling backs off. telling him to do what he wants but to leave her out of it. Huang shifts gears, offering them a reward. He can't give them the list, but he will answer 2 questions. Without missing a beat, Qingling asks the most important thing on her mind. How do talent levels increase? He turns the question back on her with a wry smile, asking why she thinks talents even have levels at all. She explains her own experience, how her sword god talent grew through battle, while her metal talent stagnated. Huang seems impressed, admitting she's sharp before revealing that every talent can be upgraded, possibly up to level 8. Huang casually adds that his own sword and gun god talents are only level 3, with a long way to go. Qingling's eyes widen, immediately demanding to know how he managed to level them up, but he just gives a strained smile, claiming regulations prevent him from answering her second question. With her turn wasted, Gao Yang raises his hand, a dark intensity in his eyes. He wants to know how to meet them. The question catches Officer Huang completely off guard. A slow, impressed smile spreads across his face. This kid is sharp. Gao Yang explains his logic, thanking Huang for the clues he's already given. With so many awakened people, he reasons that groups must have already formed somewhere. He cuts to the chase, asking if there's an organization above them, setting all these rules. Huang confirms it but dismisses himself as a mere outsider, a tool with no real authority to speak with them. To Gao Yang's disbelief, Huang admits that he himself is simply too weak. He failed the organization's assessment. It's a mysterious and selective group that even the strong can't easily enter. But now, with their combined potential, he thinks they have a real shot at trying the interview again. Qingling is immediately sold, desperate to know if joining will help her master her new talents. 2 days pass without any news of the interview, and life seems to return to normal for a moment. As Gao Yang walks home, he mulls over his growing strength and the fact his senses have become razor sharp. It's a good thing, too, because he's been getting the chilling sensation that someone is watching him. And he's right. From a dark rooftop, an unseen figure has him locked in their sights. A foot steps into the frame, the silent predator ready to make their move. Before he can even react, Gao Yang is on the ground, his last thought a desperate warning for his phantom to be on guard. But as Gao Yang spins around to face the threat, he finds a very unexpected figure in the alley. His phantom had already reacted on instinct, sending the person tumbling to the ground. His eyes widen in disbelief. It's his classmate, Wan Cece. He immediately calls off the attack. She sits on the pavement, clutching her foot and wincing in what looks like genuine pain. Rushing to her side, Gao Yang quickly apologizes for the violent misunderstanding. He helps her up, offering to take her to a convenience store so she can rest. A forgotten memory surfaces. They were close as kids, something he hadn't thought about in years. Back in the present, they sit down with drinks, the tension still palpable. She thanks him again for the trouble, playing the part of a clumsy, innocent friend. Gao Yang smiles, but his friendly demeanor drops as he tells her it's time to get to the point. His patience gone, Gao Yang's eyes narrow as he demands she stop the act and explain why she was following him. Wan Cece immediately plays the sympathy card, her head bowed, claiming she's just worried about him after Wei Wei's incident. She murmurs hollow words of encouragement, insisting that he needs to look towards the future. But her eyes betray a sharp, calculated intensity that doesn't match her gentle tone at all. Gao Yang isn't buying a single word. He curtly thanks her and says it's time for him to go. He stands and walks away without a second glance, leaving her sitting with her manipulative plan seemingly in tatters. But as he nears the door, a hand stealthily reaches for the drink he left on the table. He turns back, only to see her waving a sweet goodbye, all while her other hand secretly poisons his drink. A strange power washes over him, forcing a twisted memory of Wei Wei's confession, but his mind resists. He's seen this kind of story before. He stands alone in the dark alley, the mental attack having failed, now fully aware of the danger his old classmate represents. A faint sound catches his ear. He knows he isn't alone. Still on high alert, he spins around, demanding that his stalker reveal themselves. But the person who stumbles from the darkness is a familiar face, his friend, Fatty Jun. The man rushes forward and grabs him, frantically pleading for help and rambling about being bitten. Gao Yang tries to calm him down, but his friend's panic about his own hand makes Gao Yang instinctively glance at his. In that instant, a horrifying illusion takes hold, his own flesh twisting as an eye bursts from his palm. He recoils, the mental attack shattering as he realizes it was just a distraction. Too late, Fatty Jun's arm erupts into a grotesque, purple appendage that violently ensnares him. The monstrous limb lifts him off his feet with sickening ease, constricting around his body. And through the horror, his friend continues to scream, begging for help from the very person he's attacking. The pressure is immense, crushing the air from Gao Yang's lungs as he struggles against the grotesque limb. With his free hand, he desperately draws the ornate knife from his belt, his one and only chance. He drives the blade forward with all his might, plunging it deep into the monstrous flesh. But instead of a clean cut, the appendage writhes and seems to swallow the weapon whole. His eyes widen in disbelief as the flesh ripples. This thing isn't solid, is it a phantom? The creature flings him through the air, and in that moment of helplessness, he realizes he needs more IQ. His gaze falls upon Fatty Jun and Wan Sisi, both suspended and suffocating as his friend begs for it to stop. Suddenly, a figure in a purple jacket slams into the scene, delivering a vicious kick to the possessed friend. But as Gao Yang watches, a dark, clawed hand begins to tear its way out of his own chest. The truth is revealed. The monstrous arm is coming from him, lifting his friend helplessly into the air. The arm, now erupting from Fatty Jun, viciously hurls him through the air. It slams him into the ground with bone-shattering force. Pinned by his own limb, Fatty Jun stares in horror at the monstrosity he's become. Meanwhile, Gao Yang collapses, only to be caught by the ghost of Wang Zikai, his mind reeling. Their friend screams for them to get away, crying out that he can't control this thing. But as Gao Yang looks on, he notices a change in the apparition beside him. Dark energy swirls around Wang Zikai's arm as his muscles begin to swell and contort. Gao Yang's eyes widen in disbelief. Is his other friend turning into a beast, too? But this is no grotesque transformation. His arm erupts in a brilliant golden aura of pure power. With a furious roar, he leaps forward, promising to make the creature pay for touching his brother. His spectral hand latches onto the pulsating, grotesque limb with an unbreakable grip. He unleashes a furious roar, channeling every ounce of his protective rage. With impossible strength, he swings the monstrous appendage, slamming it against the hard ground. The ghost glares down at the captured limb, letting the creature know it has made a fatal mistake. Then, with a final, crushing squeeze, the corrupted flesh dissolves into nothing but purple vapor. That dark energy flies back and reforms around Fatty Jun's arm as he falls backward. He hits the ground hard, knocked completely unconscious from the ordeal. A soft golden light begins to glow from his hand, restoring the corrupted flesh back to normal. Wang Zikai stands tall, proclaiming himself the savior of the world, leaving Gao Yang completely bewildered. The tension breaks as he excitedly flexes, asking Gao Yang if he saw his amazing new Qilin arm. Gao Yang is completely baffled. His friend turned into a monster to save him, and now he's just normal. But Wang Zikai isn't buying it, pointing at the unconscious body and declaring the traitor must be finished off. Gao Yang grabs his arm, stopping him cold. He insists something must have happened to Fatty Jun and tells Wang Zikai they're going to his place. They arrive at a rather lavish mansion under the quiet night sky. Sometime later, Fatty Jun awakens, tied to a chair and completely bewildered, asking his friend why he's been tied up. Gao Yang cuts straight to the point, demanding to know if he's a human or a beast. Fatty Jun frantically insists he's an awakened, reminding them they've seen his powers before. Gao Yang considers this. The mutated arm isn't a normal ability, but he decides there's one way to be sure. He turns to Wang Zikai, asking if he happens to have any films lying around the house. When Wang Zikai asks what kind, Gao Yang gives a sly smile, clarifying he means those kinds of films. As the bizarre test gets underway, Fatty Jun pleads for them to stop, but his friends just mock his lackluster performance. He desperately makes excuses, insisting he's just not feeling well and isn't usually like this. Gao Yang calmly tells him to relax, not to stress out about it. But their strange experiment is interrupted by Officer Huang, who walks in demanding to know what on earth they're doing. Both are caught off guard, and Fatty Jun frantically explains that this is nothing weird, just a test from Brother Yang. Gao Yang explains his theory. It's an unconventional method for verifying humanity, concluding that Fatty Jun is probably fine. The subject of this humiliating experiment, meanwhile, is reduced to tears, begging for a little respect. Cutting through the nonsense, Officer Huang cracks open a drink and demands they tell him what's really going on. Fatty Jun begins his tale. Last night, he was simply trying to feed a pretty white cat he found near his home, but as he reached out, the seemingly harmless creature lunged and sank its teeth deep into his arm. After the cat bit him, he explains, he fell into a deep sleep before waking up and rushing to find Gao Yang. With tears in his eyes, he swears he didn't attack on purpose, he simply can't control his own arm. Officer Huang has heard enough, casually tossing his can aside with a grim look of resolve. In a flash, he pulls a gun, its barrel glowing with a menacing blue aura, aimed right at the terrified Fatty Jun. All rational thought vanishes as Fatty Jun screams for Gao Yang to help him, to stop this. But Officer Huang doesn't hesitate for a second, and a single shot rings out. Fatty Jun braces for the impact, absolutely certain that this is how he dies. A moment passes. He slowly opens his eyes, confused there's no pain. He lies on the floor, a wave of dazed relief washing over him. He's still alive. Gao Yang leans over, telling him to get up, revealing the bullet hole clean through his infected hand. Officer Huang watches, his expression grim as his worst fears are confirmed. Fatty June stares at his monstrous hand in disbelief, realizing he felt absolutely no pain. The bullet simply pops out of the tough, purple flesh, clattering harmlessly to the ground. The officer explains that this arm is a beast. Unlike other Awakeners, Fatty June is transforming, and his humanity is only temporary. That single word, temporarily, sends a wave of pure dread through Fatty Jun. He desperately grabs Gao Yang, begging not to be abandoned after everything they've been through. But the ghost of Wang Zikai appears, coldly advising Gao Yang to reconsider, reminding him that this man is a useless traitor. Fatty Jun furiously refutes the claim, screaming that he's much more useful than the ghost ever was. Before the fight can escalate, Gao Yang's hand clamps down on his shoulder, firmly putting an end to it. Gao Yang lays down a stern warning. The cat caused this, and if the infection spreads, he'll do what's necessary. Officer Huang reluctantly agrees, but only on the condition that they watch Fatty Jun like a hawk. As they walk, he reveals his organization knows of stranger things than just aggressive beasts in the world. He puts a hand on Gao Yang's shoulder, admitting that ever since they met, his sense of normalcy has been shattered. In fact, he feels supernaturally lucky around Gao Yang, joking that it's like a protagonist's aura. Gao Yang just awkwardly brushes it off, saying his ability is literally luck, so of course he's a bit lucky. Right on cue, Officer Huang grins, telling him to look, as some of that good fortune has just arrived. He hands over a small note, and Gao Yang looks at it, a flicker of hope in his eyes. On the paper is a single, crucial clue, an address in the Feiyang district. Arriving at the location, he tells Wan Sisi to give him 3 minutes before they head inside. He closes his eyes and focuses, immediately cashing in on his good fortune and gaining 61 luck points. With a determined look, he decides to risk it all and roll for a brand new talent. The system deducts 30 points, and the unlocking sequence begins, whirring with potential. But the attempt fails spectacularly, and he curses the system for being a ripoff. Still, he gets a surprise bonus of 20 permanent points, and he smugly decides to pump those into luck too. The system shuts that idea down, so he settles for charisma, raising his stats before the session terminates. With his preparations complete, his hand reaches for the metal shutter door, lifting it with a loud clatter. Hes grinning, thinking they're finally about to meet the higher-ups of the organization. But the moment he peers inside, his confident expression dissolves into pure shock. He steps not into an office, but a cavernous, retro-style arcade, a lone voice greeting him from the shadows. With a sharp snap of fingers, the world around them seems to fully activate. Every single arcade machine along the endless rows flickers to life at once. A hooded figure appears under the spotlights, his voice hissing as he asks if they're good to go. His eyes flare with a dangerous red light as he warns them this tryout is set to nightmare difficulty. Gao Yang and a woman beside him brace themselves, guessing the examiner must wield a powerful electric element. Just then, a man in a suit casually strolls in, asking if he's too late for the fun. He calmly tells the woman, Sylvie, to put her blade away. It's literally just video games. She and Gao Yang stare back in utter disbelief. Did he really just say video games? The examiner finally pulls down his hood, revealing a cocky grin and a mop of red hair, introducing himself as Hank. Hank lays out the simple rules. Pick 3 games, beat him twice, and they pass. But then Officer Huang chimes in, admitting with a laugh that he's already lost to Hank 5 times. Gao Yang is just stunned, so when Huang said he was weak, he was talking about gaming? Sylvie, however, has had enough of this farce, drawing her blade and demanding a real fight. Hank just scoffs at her challenge, telling her she's clueless about what real strength is. Then, in a shocking twist, he admits that in an actual fight, they'd all destroy him. Gao Yang can't believe it, this guy is all bark and absolutely no bite. The first match begins, with Officer Huang getting utterly dominated in his own specialty shooter game. Sylvie is next, getting destroyed in a fighter, but now she's hooked and demands another round. Hank agrees to a rematch, but only on the creepy condition that he gets to touch her first, and she accepts. Gao Yang can only watch in horror, thinking Sylvie is sacrificing way too much for this. But before Hank can touch her, her entire demeanor shifts as she grabs him, demanding to know if he has a death wish. He immediately backs down, and after a grueling rematch that ends in a draw, it's finally Gao Yang's turn. Feeling the pressure, he scans the room and decides to bet everything on an old slot machine, and with a confident grin, he hits the jackpot, leaving Hank speechless at his absurd luck. Hank concedes the round, but warns them not to get cocky, they're not in the clear yet. He then reveals the entire tryout wasn't about gaming, but a test of their mental endurance and character. Gao Yang asks if a combat trial is up next, but Hank just tells him to sit tight for orders. As they walk, an old man named Zhang is seen quietly picking through a nearby garbage bag. The suited man scoffs at the pitiful sight, but Hank quietly warns him that if he knew who that man was, he wouldn't dare speak. Hank continues, explaining that Old Man Zhang was a legendary degenerate who ruined his own life. The irony, he notes, is that this hollowed-out man is now just another lost one. But before they can process this, Gao Yang screams out a warning, pointing at Hank's feet. Looking down, Hank finds his leg trapped by strange, glowing green tendrils. The same tendrils have seized Old Man Zhang, one jamming itself down his throat. His eyes bulge in terror, a muffled chant for human escaping his lips. With a sickening snap, the old man's body begins to violently contort. A pulsing, fleshy mass erupts from his back, bathed in a sinister red glow. It bursts open, revealing a grotesque head made of countless screaming faces and eyes. In a flash, his body is consumed, replaced by a horrifying plant-like demon roaring for a human. Before he can even process the transformation, a tendril snares Hank's leg, yanking him off balance. The monster hoists him into the air, and he screams desperately for it to let him go. Suddenly, a flash of steel slices through the vines as Sylvie calmly warns the beast to keep its distance. Hank crashes to the ground, looking up at his savior, and our boy is absolutely starstruck. But the monster couldn't care less, roaring about its all-consuming hunger. Gao Yang dodges another attack, yelling at his dazed friend to snap out of it. The vine whips past him, wrapping instead around a nearby metal trash can. With a deafening crunch, the creature devours the garbage whole before roaring its true craving it needs humans. Hank stares in shock, finally realizing Old Man Zhang is a lost one, mutated beyond recognition. But Gao Yang grabs him, demanding to know why he just stood there and didn't use his electric talent. Hank sheepishly explains his power is voice-activated, but Gao Yang isn't buying it, wondering if this guy is just useless. The twisted remains of the metal bin serve as a grim reminder of what happens to anything that gets caught, and Old Man Zhang's monstrous form roars, its single-minded hunger now focused on them. Dozens of eyes and screaming mouths contort across its flesh, a chorus of pure, ravenous need. Sylvie warns the others that these tentacles are too fast. Their only option is to fight or be crushed. As if on cue, a massive vine whips down, but she's already moved, dodging with fluid grace. She doesn't just evade, she explodes forward, swords flashing as she goes on the attack. But the monster is ready, ensnaring her in a web of tentacles before she can even land a blow. Suddenly, gunshots echo in the alley as bullets rip through the vines, freeing her. The suited man grits his teeth, realizing they're just getting nowhere until Gao Yang, glowing blue, steps up and declares it's his turn. With a surge of blue energy, Gao Yang phases right through a lethal tentacle strike. He throws his hand forward, manifesting a massive pair of phantom scissors in midair. With a single command, he sends the spectral weapon flying straight towards the monster's head. It pierces Old Man Zhang's skull, eliciting a raw, agonized scream from the creature. Gao Yang lands, his phantom energy swirling around him as he regains his footing. He grits his teeth in frustration. The phantom was too weak, but he's found the weak spot. Seeing her opening, Sylvie shouts for cover and immediately charges towards the wounded beast. She deftly weaves through the storm of tentacles, sword held ready for the final blow. From above, the suited man provides covering fire, his pistol blasting away at the vines. He yells for her to push forward, determined to clear her path to victory. Not waiting for another opening, Gao Yang leaps into the fray, his phantom blade held high. He brings it down hard, slicing clean through one of the monster's thick tentacles. With the beast momentarily distracted, Sylvie sees her chance and dashes in for the kill. But the creature is far from helpless, its mutated flesh pulsing with a sinister red energy. The severed tentacles don't die. Instead, they squirm on the ground like venomous worms. Suddenly, the dismembered limbs shoot up from the pavement like organic javelins. They fly right past Sylvie, who is still charging forward, completely unaware of the new threat. Gao Yang's eyes widen in horror as he screams a desperate warning for her to look out. It's too late. The living vines whip around her, constricting her arms and body in a vice grip. With a sickening thud, she is brutally slammed into the asphalt, her sword flying from her grasp. Pinned but not broken, Sylvie glares at her fallen sword. She still has one last chance. She unleashes her power, telekinetically launching the blade into the air like a guided missile. It streaks towards the monster's head, but Old Man Zhang is fast, trying to bat it away. The sword sinks deep into his skull, a perfect, brutal strike right between the eyes. A second phantom blade joins the first, and the creature lets out an unholy shriek of agony. But Sylvie grits her teeth in frustration. Her metal ability is too low level to deal a fatal blow. A thick, slimy tentacle wraps around the hilt, halting the blade's advance with raw power. With a grunt of effort, the monster rips the sword right out of its own head. Her weapon clatters uselessly to the ground, and the beast gloats that she will now become part of it. Suddenly, A furious shout rings out as Gao Yang charges in, yelling for the monster to get its hands off her. Before Gao Yang can even react, a slimy green tendril whips out from the darkness. It wraps tight around his ankle, and he realizes with dawning horror that he's completely tapped out. Hez yanked off his feet, certain Hez about to be dragged into the abyss and turned into mulch. But then, a hand reaches out through the gloom, Officer Huang, yelling for him to grab on. They lock hands, a desperate grip. But Huang admits his clip is empty, they're finished. As despair washes over him, Gao Yang forces himself to stay calm, to think. And just like that, the system rewards him, unlocking a brand new talent, Mimic. A wild idea sparks in his mind. He shoves Huang's hand away, telling him to let go. The officer is furious, shouting that it's a suicide mission, and asking if he's gone insane. But Gao Yang meets his gaze with steely resolve, insisting that he has a plan and needs him to trust him. Seeing that unwavering resolve, Officer Huang makes his choice, screaming that he trusts him. But he begs him, whatever he's planning, just don't die, as their grip finally slips. Gao Yang plunges into the swirling abyss, a thick vine yanking him deeper. But this was all part of his insane gamble. He spots Sylvie nearby and yells for her to get closer. She's completely confused as his hand reaches out, not for rescue, but directly for her. He just needs to make physical contact for a split second, and the system confirms it. A mimicable talent is identified, Blade God Level 3. He initiates the copy instantly. A new power floods his senses as he roars at Sylvie, telling her to throw him her blade. Now, snapping out of her shock, she uses her own metal ability, launching the sword through the torrent. The blade streaks towards Gao Yang, a final hope as he's dragged into the clutches of the mutated Old Man Zhang. His fingers wrap around the hilt, and a jolt of raw energy surges through him. The sword feels like an extension of his own arm, a part of him he never knew was missing. Suddenly, it all floods his brain, muscle memory, combat techniques, a killer instinct not his own. He turns to face the grotesque monster, his body moving with an unnatural, perfect alignment. In a split-second calculation, he sees his opening and unleashes the full power of the Blade God. A golden arc of energy slices through the air, aimed directly at the creature's core. The strike connects, carving cleanly through the monster's mutated flesh and severing its main vine. As the monster recoils in agony, the vines constricting Sylvie suddenly go slack and release her. Snapping back to her senses, she immediately reactivates her own talent, focusing on the metal of her blade. With a flick of her wrist, she calls her sword back, yanking it free from the chaos and into her grasp. And with her sword back in hand, Sylvie unleashes her own furious storm of golden slashes. The monster that was Old Man Zhang is utterly shredded, diced into a dozen pieces. As the remains flop to the ground, Gao Yang lets out a breath, thinking the danger is finally over. But in the next instant, a cold blade is pressed against his throat. It's Sylvie, demanding answers. He stammers out an apology. Thinking she's angry he touched her to copy the ability. She cuts him off, her eyes blazing. She doesn't care about that. She wants to know how he has her Blade God talent. Pinned, he explains he wasn't hiding anything. He just awakened a new talent on the spot called Mimic. Officer Huang steps between them, confirming that spontaneous awakenings are real, and Mimic is ranked an impressive number 18. Hearing this, Sylvie's suspicion finally cools, and she lowers her weapon, accepting the unbelievable story. Just then, Hank Wu strolls up to the scene, casually asking if their little monster-slaying adventure means they passed the exam. The group is left speechless. That entire life-or-death struggle wasn't even the exam. Hank Wu scoffs at their naivety, asking if they really think he's some psycho wad design a test like that, announcing that the abomination was too disgusting to even look at. He casually decides he's leaving. As he walks off, Officer Huang calmly tells them to clean up the scene and await news about round 2. Behind them, a cleanup team is already at work, scorching the mutated remains of Old Man Zhang to ash. Gao Yang watches, a grim realization settling in. These beasts are absolute nightmares, and he needs to be faster, sharper. Just then, he feels a strange presence, looking up to see a mysterious white cat watching him from a street sign. He's taken aback, completely startled. Where in the world did that come from? Officer Huang asks what he's staring at, but when Gao Yang turns to point, the cat has already vanished. Huang urges him to hurry before they're discovered, and soon they're in a car, Sylvie completely passed out from exhaustion. Watching Sylvie sleep, Gao Yang reflects on her past. She awakened at 10, and he finally understands the trauma behind her icy exterior. His thoughts are cut short by his phone buzzing relentlessly, a late-night call from his sister, Joyce. He answers to hear her frantic voice screaming that something terrible has happened, and he needs to get home now. The scene shifts, and Gao Yang is now sprinting full tilt down a hospital corridor, desperate to know how his father is. He finds his mother, completely distraught. who explains that while his dad is stabilized, the spinal damage is critical. She breaks down, revealing he may be permanently wheelchair-bound, all because of a car crash. His sister clings to him, sobbing. Stepping up, Gao Yang holds his family together, reminding them that their father being alive is what matters most. His mother looks up, wiping her tears, his words a lifeline in the middle of her despair. He tells her to take his sister home and rest, insisting that he will stay and watch over their dad for the night. His mother just looks at him. Her boy, who in a single moment has become the man of the family. The clock ticks past 5:30 a.m. when a doctor on duty offers Gao Yang a warm drink. He takes the cup, the simple gesture a small comfort during the long night's vigil. The doctor remarks that this is his favorite time of day, not for some poetic reason, but because his grueling shift is finally over. He then notices Gao Yang just holding the cup, asking why he isn't drinking. Gao Yang looks away, making the lame excuse that he's just not thirsty right now. A knowing smirk spreads across the doctor's face as he cuts right through the facade, asking if he's scared of him. The question catches Gao Yang completely off guard, and he stammers, trying to deny it. But the doctor presses on, his voice low, stating that he knows Gao Yang thinks he's a beast. The word hangs in the air, and Gao Yang's eyes widen in pure shock. The sudden jolt of fear triggers his power, and a digital phantom of himself flickers into existence behind him. The doctor leans back with a smug confidence, telling Gao Yang to relax. If he were a threat, the boy would already be dead. The gears in Gao Yang's head finally click into place, and he realizes this man isn't a monster, he's an awakener. The doctor introduces himself with a knowing look. His name is Marcus Bai. His eyes flash a brilliant crimson as he reveals his talent. Crimson Sight, ability number 131. He explains it allows him to see thermal signatures, spotting the subtle differences that mark a beast, and he knew Gao Yang was human from the start. A wave of relief washes over Gao Yang, who feels like an idiot for letting his paranoia get the better of him. But with one fear gone, another takes its place, and he desperately asks Dr. Bai if his family is human. The doctor's face turns serious, shutting him down immediately. Sorry kid, rules are rules. Bai then studies him, correctly guessing that Gao Yang must have awakened his powers very recently. He sits down next to the boy, noting that his terror of beasts seems a little excessive, prompting a bewildered Gao Yang to ask if he shouldn't be afraid. Dr. Bai explains that beasts meticulously roleplay as humans, following a delicate order, a certain way of things. He adjusts his glasses, ready to impart some heavy wisdom on the boy. This fragile piece, this fabricated reality, holds together so long as awakeners don't shatter the status quo. The words hit Gao Yang, whose thoughts turn to his father's hospital room, and a realization begins to dawn. He's been overthinking it. Whether his family is human or beast, the love he feels is genuine. He decides then and there to stop living in terror. When drowning in unknowns, his best bet is to find the truth. Fired up with new purpose, he bombards Dr. Bai with questions about how beasts even exist and why they hunt awakeners. He presses him, desperately needing to understand what this way and order truly are. But Bai just sighs, noting that the poor kid has been through a lot, but sadly, he's clueless on most of those topics. And even if he did know, protocol forbids him from talking. However, he'll leave him with one final thought. He leaves Gao Yang with a final, chilling thought as he walks away down the sterile hospital corridor. In the grand cosmic scheme, he says, human life is just a brief, insignificant fever dream. The words echo in Gao Yang's mind back in class, where he can only stare out the window, completely zoned out. His brooding is interrupted by a classmate's voice calling his name. It's Wan Cece, who shyly asks if he'd be willing to come to her birthday party this weekend. He has to turn her down, gently explaining that his father is still in the hospital after his accident. She immediately covers her mouth, horrified that she was so insensitive, and finally understanding his recent behavior. Gao Yang tries to reassure her, saying his dad is slowly recovering but still coming to terms with it all. But just as he seems to be thinking it over, a different voice cuts into the conversation. From the desk behind him, Sylvie coolly declares that she'll personally make sure he shows up to that party. Gao Yang is completely stunned by Sylvie's sudden intervention, but Wan Cece is ecstatic, beaming as she tells them she'll be expecting them both. After she leaves, Sylvie reveals the real reason for her confidence, showing him an interesting card she'd gotten. It's a formal summons for the organization's second-round evaluation, conveniently at the same time and place as the party. The venue is Booty KTV, a flashy, neon-soaked karaoke bar. And so, on Saturday, Gao Yang arrives with a cake in hand, his mind already on what kind of test awaits him. He walks in to find Sylvie already there, sitting alone on a couch, having beaten him there by a mile. Her Ice Queen aura is in full effect, a silent warning keeping everyone else at a safe distance. Across the room, The birthday girl Wan Cece is chatting with friends when they finally spot him. He approaches with a warm smile, presenting the cake and wishing her a happy birthday, playing his part perfectly. But the pleasantries are cut short by a new voice. Some rich kid named Juan, who mocks Gao Yang's humble cake. Gao Yang instantly sizes him up, a well-known school playboy who's obviously gunning for him. The birthday girl, however, is completely oblivious, gushing over how much she loves strawberry cake. Juan lets out a dismissive teach, annoyed that his little jab didn't land as hard as he wanted. So he changes tactics, shoving a microphone at Gao Yang and demanding a punishment song for being late. A wicked grin spreads across his face, confident he's found the perfect way to embarrass his rival. Gao Yang plays along, scratching his head and reluctantly agreeing, asking them to go easy on him if he's bad. He steps onto the stage and pauses for a moment, prompting Juan to heckle him from the crowd. With a drink in his hand, the rich kid sneers, openly wondering if Gao Yang is just tone-deaf. But gripping the mic, Gao Yang's demeanor hardens. He's known for being a terrible singer, but this time, he has the system. With his eyes narrowed in concentration, he tunes out the world. A beep echoes in his mind as he accesses the system in emergency mode. He asks what stat he needs to not sound terrible, and the system points to charisma. He doesn't hesitate, all 30 points, right now. The enhancement completes, his charisma stat jumping to a staggering 69 as he lifts the microphone to his lips. And then he begins to sing, his voice flowing out, impossibly smooth and melodic. The girls in the crowd are instantly spellbound, especially Wan Cece, who thinks he sounds even better than the original artist. He finishes his song, gently setting the microphone down. With a humble smile, he thanks them for listening to his little amateur performance. But Juan, furious at being upstaged, slams a dice cup down, yelling that sappy songs are for losers. A dangerous smirk plays on Gao Yang's lips. Dice, he thinks. With my luck stat, he calmly agrees to roll. Juan leans back, supremely confident, as he faces Gao Yang across the dice cups. He scoffs at his opponent's choice, boasting that he's literally never lost a game of pure luck. A waitress arrives with a tray of standard beers for the loser, but Juan angrily dismisses them, demanding 5 cases of their most expensive drink, Space Nebula. A different waitress in a bunny outfit gently warns him that even 2 cases of that cocktail is a lot. He explodes in a fit of rage, accusing her of looking down on him and thinking he can't afford it. The intimidated waitress immediately apologizes and hurries off to get his ridiculous order. Gao Yang simply smirks, noting that while he doesn't like to show off, he never backs down from a fight. He lifts his cup, revealing a very solid roll, all 4s and 5s. Having clearly lost the round, Juan is forced to down the penalty shot. Juan stares at the dice, his face contorted with rage, refusing to believe he's lost 15 times in a row. He erupts in a drunken fury, demanding another round, absolutely certain that Gao Yang must be cheating. With a violent slam, the cup shatters, and a sharp piece of shrapnel zips through the air, cutting Wan Cece's arm. That's the last straw. Gao Yang's friendly demeanor vanishes as he grabs Juan's wrist, telling him he's gone too far. But Juan is completely unhinged, shoving him off and screaming that a broke loser like him has no right to interfere. He sends Gao Yang stumbling back into a chair and then grabs a heavy pitcher, clearly intending to start a real fight. Gao Yang gets to his feet, telling his friends it's time to go, trying to de-escalate the situation for their sake. He puts on a calm facade for the girls, promising to babysit the drunk so they can leave safely. The other guests are already heading for the door, disgusted by Juan's behavior ruining the entire party. As she leaves, Wan Cece looks back at Gao Yang, her expression full of worry for what's about to happen. With everyone gone, Gao Yang tries one last time to appeal to reason, pointing out that this is all just a stupid misunderstanding. But Sylvie, watching from the couch, scoffs at his words, telling him to cut the holier-than-thou act. Fueled by her comment, Juan grabs Gao Yang, screaming that he's deliberately trying to steal his girls and ruin his life. Suddenly, a hand clamps down on Juan's wrist, gently but firmly trying to stop him. A waitress in a bunny mask has stepped in, her voice calm as she suggests they all talk this out like adults. Juan whirls around, absolutely furious that some staff member would dare to interfere with him, but this is no ordinary waitress. Her eyes glow with intent as she raises her hand, ready to strike. A brutal backhand cracks across Juan's face with incredible force, sending him staggering backward. He collapses to the floor, instantly knocked unconscious and ensnared by some sort of mysterious threads. Gao Yang can only stare, completely dumbfounded by the sudden and shocking turn of events. The mysterious waitress gives a friendly wave, her smiling lips the only feature visible beneath her mask. She introduces herself to Gao Yang as White Rabbit, an agent of a group called the Zodiac. The pieces suddenly click into place for Gao Yang. She's the real examiner? Then Juan was nothing but a failure? White Rabbit's eyes gleam with amusement, confirming that yes, she is the one administering his test. She then gestures down at the unconscious Juan, explaining that he wasn't a rival, he was the exam question. A sharp, gleaming knife appears in her hand as she announces the second part of the test. She presses the weapon into Gao Yang's palm, her command chillingly simple. Execute the lost one. Gao Yang stares back in utter disbelief. She's asking him to commit murder? But as he stands there frozen, Sylvie's blade materializes in her own hand, shimmering with power. She casually kneels by Juan's body, wondering aloud if it's really that simple. Kill him, and they pass? White Rabbit confirms their task is simple. Use any method, and she'll handle the disposal. With no hesitation at all, Sylvie whips the knife around, aiming straight for Juan's throat. But just as the blade descends, a hand flashes out, grabbing her wrist in a firm grip. It's Gao Yang, desperately telling her to stop, refusing to let her commit murder. He argues it makes no sense. Juan hasn't even transformed into a beast yet. The examiner's eyes narrow, retorting that beasts don't require justification to be terminated. She gives Juan's body a contemptuous kick, mocking them for being squeamish over one lost one. Then, she offers a truly twisted alternative. If not him, how about that girl Celia instead? Gao Yang looks down at the unconscious man. He admits to himself Juan is trash, a walking disaster. A dark thought crosses his mind, maybe it's better to just finish him off while he's passed out. But in that final moment, his mind snaps into focus. Wait, hold on a second. The examiner's words echo in his head. Test number 2, execute the lost one. He realizes the critical distinction. She didn't say beast. This organization separates lost ones from monsters. And with that revelation, the knife clatters onto the table. His path is clear. They kill rage beasts when necessary, but they don't execute lost ones. Sylvie grabs his shoulder in a panic, asking if he's lost his mind. This is their golden ticket. He turns to her, his voice low and urgent. Sylvie, just wait, it's a setup. The examiner's smirk confirms it all. Gao Yang just disqualified himself. Now, it's Sylvie's turn. She's told to choose wisely, as a gleaming blade forms in her hand, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Gao Yang can only watch as the full weight of the test now falls upon his friend. Following Gao Yang's lead, Sylvie's resolve hardens. She too refuses to kill him. The examiner turns away, her voice dripping with disappointment, and wishes them luck staying alive. Gao Yang's mind races. Did he completely misread the situation? Did they both just fail? But she stops at the door, turning back for one last question. What's their reasoning for sparing lost ones? Gao Yang steps up, explaining that this world operates on a delicate balance. He then dives into a philosophical tirade. He's shamelessly recycling from Dr. Bai, praying she doesn't catch on. Her eyes widen behind the mask. He just echoed their captain's ideology, almost word for word. With a sharp clack of her heel, the act is over. She announces they've both officially cleared round 2. She then lays out the Zodiac's core tenets, written by the captain himself. Never harm humans, and never harm lost ones. And finally, rule number 3. Absolutely no workplace romances. Break any of these, and you're blacklisted for good. Gao Yang can't help but crack a smile. The first 2 rules are noble. But that third one, what's that all about? Sylvie asks if they're official members now, but the White Rabbit clarifies they're merely on probation until they pass one final test. She holds up an old, simple key. Their mission: find the door it unlocks in the mountain district and retrieve whatever is inside. Gao Yang takes the key, both of them staring at the cryptic, ancient-looking object in his palm. With a final, ominous touch, she warns them to stay sharp out there, because this final trial is deadly serious. He admits to Sylvie that he has a really bad feeling about this, but her resolve is absolute. There's no turning back now. 3 days later, we learn Officer Huang also passed, using police databases to quickly track down the key's location. Gao Yang and Sylvie, now dressed for the field, finally arrive at the remote location by taxi. They step out onto a worn stone path, confirming that this isolated village must be the place. But before they can even get their bearings, a familiar voice calls out, using a name he hasn't heard in ages. Leo. Gao Yang is stunned to see his old buddies Wang Zikai and Fatty Jun, with Officer Huang coolly standing by. Huang explains that he was asked to bring reinforcements for the mission. He casually drops his cigarette, warning them all that this final exam is notoriously deadly and casualties are expected. While Sylvie remains resolved, Fatty Jun is already getting nervous, asking if they're even in the right place. Huang leads the way up a long flight of stairs, explaining that the key could only belong to this forgotten, 30-year-old village. A wave of dread washes over Fatty Jun as he recognizes their destination, the infamous Gu family village. Huang turns, confirming his friend's fear. He's heard the grim stories about this place as well. He recalls that the tragic incident that made this village a ghost story happened about 3 decades ago. Gao Yang, Sylvie, and Wang Zikai are completely lost. demanding to know what has the other two so spooked. With a grave expression, Huang delivers the chilling truth. This village was the site of a full-blown massacre. Huang begins to recount the village's terrifying history. 3 decades ago, a family of 5 was brutally slaughtered. Their bodies were dismembered, the parts scattered across the entire settlement for all to find. But the horror didn't stop there. Less than 2 weeks after the murders, police arrived to investigate, only to discover that all 53 of the remaining residents had vanished without a trace. With the grim story told, Huang stands before the village entrance, ready. He takes the key they found, its purpose now chillingly clear, and inserts it into the ancient lock. With a heavy click, the gate creaks open, revealing the tense faces of Gao Yang and Sylvie behind him. Stepping inside, Huang orders everyone to lock the gate and remain on high alert. Gao Yang's own instincts are screaming, certain that this village's dark past is tied to the beasts. But Wang Zikai just grins, telling a terrified Fatty Jun not to worry, because he's got their backs. As they stand in the cursed village, Gao Yang racks his brain, trying to recall his mission, but a sudden, faint rustle cuts through the silence, and his eyes snap wide. An unnatural wind begins to swirl through the abandoned square, kicking up dust and debris. The entire team tenses up, their confident facades cracking as they stare into the gloom. All eyes are drawn toward an old stone well at the center of the village. A thick, inky mass of what looks like wet black hair begins to slither out from its depths. Fatty Jun, predictably, is the first one to break, letting out a horrified shriek. He panics and turns to run, but Gao Yang shouts for him not to move an inch. It's too late. The shadowy tendrils lash out and pierce straight through his back. The dark tendrils wrap around Fatty Jun's face, his muffled cries for help swallowed by the shadows. He's hoisted into the air and dragged helplessly toward the gaping maw of the ancient well. Gao Yang screams his friend's name, a look of pure fury and desperation on his face. He lunges forward, stretching out a hand to try and intercept him, but the tendrils are just too fast, yanking Fatty Jun just out of his desperate reach. In a last-ditch effort, Fatty Jun's fingers scrape against the stone, finding a momentary grip. He clings to the edge of the well, pleading for anyone at all, to save him. Suddenly, Wang Zikai bursts into motion, telling everyone to stay calm. He's got this. In a flash, his hand shoots out and firmly grabs Fatty Jun's, pulling him back from the brink. But his heroism is short-lived as the shadowy tendrils wrap around him too, yanking both men into the air. Wang Zikai roars in defiance, his rage directed entirely at the creature for daring to touch his friend. As they're pulled closer to the darkness, Fatty Jun can only scream for him not to let go. Just then, 3 sharp cracks of gunfire echo through the courtyard. The enchanted bullets slam into the mass of hair but are swallowed without a trace. Officer Huang grits his teeth in frustration, seeing his attack was completely useless. Stepping forward, Gao Yang tells Sylvie it's their turn as he mimics her blade god talent, a phantom sword materializing in his hand. With a shared resolve, they both leap into the fray, launching themselves toward the well. They land perfectly, swords drawn, ready to face the swirling vortex that has consumed their friends. But just as suddenly as they were taken, Fatty Jun and Wang Zikai are spat back out, confused but alive. Before anyone can celebrate, a dark rustling from within the well signals the fight is far from over. A massive whip of black hair erupts, lashing out and forcing everyone to scatter. Gao Yang stares in disbelief, wondering what kind of monster they're even dealing with. Sylvie shouts a warning, her own blade ready as the shadowy tendrils descend upon them. The attack narrowly misses Gao Yang, who feels the rush of air from the near-fatal blow. The others dodge wildly, noting that the fluid whips are hard to hit and seem to have terrible aim. But as another tendril slams into the stone floor, Gao Yang realizes it's not aiming for them at all. His eyes widen with a terrifying thought. He knows what the creature is actually trying to do. He screams a final, desperate warning for everyone to run. The entire place is caving in. The ground shatters beneath them, and the whole team is sent plummeting into the abyss. Consciousness returns with a throbbing headache, and Gao Yang's mind races. Did they just fall into the underworld? He opens his eyes to find himself sitting on a dirt road in a quiet, sunlit village. Sylvie is already awake nearby, tending to a small wound. Her focus sharp as she notes this place feels deeply wrong. Getting to his feet, Gao Yang wanders over to a large stone marker, confirming they're at the entrance to the Gu family village. But the logic is breaking his brain. They fell underground. So how did they end up here? And how did night turn into day? Sylvie pulls out her phone to check. The screen is shattered and the signal is dead, but the clock is still working. She looks from the bright, sunny sky to her phone's display, confirming it's still evening. This place, she concludes, is just insane. Before they can process it all, an old villager approaches, casually asking if they're here for the funeral viewing. Gao Yang stammers out an agreement, his mind reeling. There are people here? And they're alive? The old man points them towards the ancestral shrine, explaining the village just lost someone. It's a real shame, he adds, how Henry's entire clan of 5 was carved to pieces overnight. He continues walking, mentioning grimly that the severed head was mounted right on the village boundary stone. Gao Yang's eyes snap to the blood on the marker, realizing its fresh splatter with 0 erosion. This isn't some old forgotten stain. This happened recently. He asks Sylvie if any of this horrific story rings a bell, and her face pales as she connects the dots to a cold case. They've just warped 30 years back in time, landing right in the middle of the village's most infamous massacre. The once silent village is now teeming with people, gathered for what is clearly a funeral. It sinks in for Gao Yang and Sylvie. They've landed at ground zero, just after the slaughter. Suddenly, a familiar voice cries out as Wang Zikai tackles Gao Yang in a relieved hug. He's ecstatic to see his friend alive, and is immediately asked where the others are. Right on cue, Han Shujun and the stoic officer Huang emerge, confirming the whole team is accounted for. But any sense of relief evaporates as Huang gravely announces they have a serious problem. He explains they've tried to leave, but no matter which way they go, they hit an invisible wall. The entire team stands before a shimmering, watery barrier, realizing they are utterly trapped. Gao Yang, however, keeps his cool, pressing his hand against the barrier and telling everyone not to panic. The path forward becomes clear. To escape, they must solve the very massacre that made this village vanish. Officer Huang reels from the revelation their test is to crack this 30-year-old cold case. With unshakable resolve, Gao Yang confirms it's their final trial and their only way out. The group walks toward the village, their first step to pay respects and hunt for clues. They're immediately met by a somber funeral scene, where 2 men are taking names and donations. The villagers look up, surprised to see outsiders, and ask if they knew the deceased. Thinking fast, Officer Huang flashes a badge, declaring he's a detective here to investigate. The villagers' demeanor changes instantly, shaking Huang's hand and begging him to bring the family justice. With their cover story accepted, the team steps into the quiet, sorrowful funeral hall. Gao Yang's gaze cuts through the crowd, locking onto the memorial at the front. A black and white photograph of a father and his 3 sons stares back the victims of the massacre. After settling in, Officer Huang cuts to the chase, asking if anyone else noticed something odd. Gao Yang confirms it instantly. Only 4 people are in the memorial photos. Han Shujun's face twists in confusion. The news said 5 victims. Huang calmly explains the family tree, the father and his 3 sons. The person missing is the eldest son's new wife. He reveals she married into the family on the very night of the massacre, and more chillingly, there are no records of her identity whatsoever. The bodies were hacked to pieces, with the bride's head never found. Just as the horror sinks in, a cheerful villager arrives with their meal. Suddenly, the table is covered in an overwhelming, almost suspicious, spread of meat dishes. Gao Yang stares at the feast, his mind reeling with questions about how one person could commit such butchery, let alone make a village disappear. While the team processes the grim reality, Wang Zikai seems completely unaffected, already digging into the food. He shoves a mouthful in, wondering aloud why nobody else is eating while the food gets cold. Officer Huang shoots him a dead-eyed stare, his response a cold and simple "not hungry." Sylvie and Han Shujun agree, their appetites gone, remarking that only Wang Zikai would have the stomach for this feast. But their mockery dies in their throats as his face suddenly goes pale, his cheeks puffed out in a silent scream. He lurches forward, violently vomiting whatever he just ate all over the floor. Officer Huang is immediately at his side, asking what's wrong as Wang Zikai weakly mutters about his stomach feeling strange. But then Huang's eyes snap wide with sudden dawning horror. He shouts for the others to look, and they see it too. Not food, but a writhing pile of worms spilling onto the floorboards. Sylvie glances around in disgust, only to see the other villagers, their faces now monstrous and decayed, happily eating. Her eyes dart back to the feast on their own table, and the illusion shatters completely. Every plate is a squirming mass of maggots. Gao Yang feels his own gorge rise, horrified that these specters can't see the truth. But Huang orders him to stay cool. Forcing a strained smile, Gao Yang turns to the ghoulish villagers, assuring them his friend is fine, just a sensitive stomach. Supporting his sick friend, Gao Yang notes with disgust that the villagers are like zombies, completely unfazed by the horror on their plates. He grabs Han Shujun, insisting they need to crack this case fast to escape. But Han Shujun is lost. How can they solve a 30-year-old mystery? Gao Yang's eyes narrow with an idea. There's only one logical place to start. He turns to Officer Huang, declaring their next destination, the original crime scene. The team arrives at a dilapidated house, sealed off with ancient police tape and choked with cobwebs. Gao Yang steps up to the old, weathered door, ready to breach the seal. Han Shujun stares in disbelief, his voice shaking as he asks if they're really going into an active murder scene. But Gao Yang is resolute, telling him this is the only path forward, the only way out of this nightmare. The door creaks open, and Wang Zikai peers inside, cutting through the thick darkness with a flashlight beam. One by one, the entire group follows Gao Yang inside, descending into the heart of the decades-old mystery. The aftermath of the original murder is even more brutal than they imagined. This was a slaughter. Officer Huang begins to recount the initial investigation, recalling a top forensics expert he'd brought in. Even that expert was baffled, concluding the victim was cleaved by a single blow of inhuman strength. He turns to Gao Yang, his voice low, stating with conviction that no normal person could have done this. The chilling truth dawns on them. The killer was a beast, a possibility Huang couldn't even fathom back then. This revelation sends Han Shujun into a panic, terrified they're next on the chopping block. Sylvie, however, just smirks, her blade igniting as she calls a beast an easy target, you just kill it. But Gao Yang holds them back, insisting they need to identify what kind of monster they're hunting. Officer Huang takes the lead, explaining to the group that there are 4 known types of beasts. He notes they've already faced wrath and delusion beasts, but 2 others remain: greed and obsession. First, he explains, are greed beasts, also called assimilators, parasites that hijack human bodies. Then there are the obsession beasts, known as observers, but beyond that, even his knowledge is limited. Han Shujun is already panicking at the sheer variety, while the ever-cocky Wang Zikai scoffs that, with his power, it doesn't matter. Sylvie, however, thinks like a true warrior, realizing she'll need to adapt her fighting style for each type. But Gao Yang cuts through the chatter with a chilling hypothesis. What if their killer is one of these unknown beasts, and the one trapping them here? Sylvie immediately grasps the implication: if they kill the beast, they're free to go. Just then, a sharp knock echoes from the front door, and Officer Huang instantly draws his pistol, demanding to know who's there. The door creaks open to reveal a weary old villager, who introduces himself as Cane's 4th uncle, claiming they met that morning. Huang cautiously asks what he's doing at a crime scene in the middle of the night, as the group gathers around him outside. The old man explains he and the victim's family go way back, and that he couldn't speak freely earlier, but now, he's ready to reveal the truth. The old man leans in with a grim certainty, declaring that the killer is one of their own villagers. Officer Huang, ever the skeptic, immediately demands to know what evidence he has for such a claim. The villager begins his tale, recounting the night the family was massacred, their bodies strewn about. But he points out one chilling, unnatural detail. Every single dog in the village was dead silent. Gao Yang presses him, asking if he suspects anyone, but the old man can't imagine who would do it. He suddenly grabs Huang's hand with a desperate strength, his eyes pleading. He begs the officer to uncover the truth, placing all his hope in their investigation. But in that very instant, a violent slash rips through the air, and the entire group reacts in shock. Han Shujun screams in pure terror, calling out for Leo. Gao Yang looks down in horror, his eyes locked on a monstrous, scaly hand wrapped in dark energy. The old villager looks up, his monstrous arm on full display, and asks why everyone is staring at him. He seems genuinely confused, even hurt, wondering if they actually believe he's the killer. Gao Yang quickly tries to defuse the situation, forcing a smile and blaming the tense atmosphere. He glances back at his team, quietly signaling for everyone to just take a breath and stand down. But Leo is ready to leap forward until Sylvie physically holds him back, reminding him that their leader gave the order. A wave of pain hits the old man as his transformation fades, and he cries out that he wants to find the real killer more than anyone. He turns and shuffles away, leaving Gao Yang to wonder why a clear beast isn't trying to tear them apart. He explains to Leo that the man has zero killing intent. He's a lost one, and attacking him now would be a disaster. Sylvie is baffled by this. The symptoms are there, but the rampage is missing. It makes absolutely no sense. Gao Yang then begins to lay out his new theory, suggesting beasts have an internal switch that flips between their 2 sides. He explains that beasts are living creatures. They age, they get sick, their bodies break down, and for this old man, the switch is probably just busted. But Leo and Han Shujun are tired of theorizing. They're here to find a killer, not stand around talking. Sylvie agrees, stepping forward with her blade. The simplest plan is to just force the real killer out into the open. Leo thinks that's a great idea, they can just hit every house. But Gao Yang cuts him off, realizing that if they're wrong, the lost ones won't even react. A sudden thought strikes him. He turns to Officer Huang, asking for a very specific, very important piece of information. He needs to know the exact date the entire village vanished in the real world. Huang thinks for a moment he's pretty sure it was right after the funeral. The funeral is tomorrow. A wave of shock hits Huang as the implication sinks in. Gao Yang decides they need to hole up for the night and conserve their strength. But he has one critical thing he must verify first. With their leader's orders set, the team finds an abandoned house to crash in for now. As the others cram onto a bed and drift off to sleep, Officer Huang sits guard, pistol in hand, his mind racing. But for some, sleep is a luxury they can't afford in this cursed place. Gao Yang is startled awake as a hand gently grabs his arm. Still groggy, he turns, thinking it must be Sylvie. His eyes meet hers, wide awake in the dim light. He asks why she's still up, confused. Sylvie admits that even with her eyes closed, her mind is racing. She's too stressed to truly sleep. He understands completely. Had hoped they could both get some real rest, but she's just as scared as he is. She tries to brush it off, insisting she's about to pass out any second now. Instead of arguing, he simply pulls the blanket up over her shoulder. With a soft touch, he wishes her good night, a quiet moment of calm in the storm. The night's fragile peace is shattered by an 11 o'clock alarm on a cracked phone. Gao Yang jolts awake with grim purpose, announcing that their time is up. Armed with a shovel and a flashlight, he ventures deep into the oppressive darkness of the woods. The rest of the team follows, completely baffled as Sylvie asks what he's trying to confirm. He turns to them, his gaze steely, declaring he's about to solve the mystery of Gu Village. His plan leads them straight into an eerie, overgrown cemetery, and Han Shujun is already panicking. Officer Huang's eyes widen in disbelief, realizing the grim nature of Gao Yang's intentions. Before he can even voice his objection, a shovel plunges deep into the cold earth. Standing beside a tombstone, Gao Yang confirms their worst fears. They're digging up graves. Han Shujun is sweating bullets, asking if this horrifying act is truly worth whatever they might find. Seeing Han Shujun paralyzed by fear, Gao Yang scoffs and shoves him aside, declaring he'll do it himself. With a heavy thunk, his shovel bites deep into the desecrated ground. He works relentlessly, tossing aside clumps of earth in the dead of night. Each strike against the soil echoes the grim determination in his heart. Soon enough, their morbid labor bears fruit, as a heavy wooden coffin is fully unearthed. But Gao Yang isn't celebrating. He just stares ahead coldly and orders them to get ready for the next one. Wang Zikai, desperate to end the suspense, volunteers to rip the coffin open immediately, but Gao Yang quickly stops him, insisting they must do this his way. He wedges the sharp end of the shovel into the lid seam with a soft clack. With steady pressure, he begins to pry it open, revealing the darkness sealed within. Sensing something isn't right, Gao Yang barks an order for everyone to stand back. He calls on Sylvie, whose telekinetic powers flare to life, taking control of the shovel. Wang Zikai scoffs at the paranoia, but Gao Yang insists it's better to be safe than sorry. With a loud creak, the shovel pries the heavy wooden lid upward from a distance. Then, with a final surge of force, the lid is torn completely off, landing with a heavy bam. Han Shujun immediately recoils, a hand flying to his mouth in utter shock. The rest of the team stares down as a strange blue mist spills out from the grave. But inside is just a pile of bones, making Wang Zikai wonder what all the fuss was about. Sylvie, however, realizes something is horribly wrong. These people only died 10 days ago. Officer Huang agrees, noting they're picked clean to the bone, far too fast for natural decay. Officer Huang turns to Gao Yang, his suspicions grimly confirmed. The truth hits Gao Yang like a ton of bricks. They didn't travel back in time at all. This desolate place is the real Gu family village, which vanished 30 years ago. The others are horrified. If this is the real one, what was that illusion they just escaped? Gao Yang explains that the village they started in was a fake, a perfect copy of the original. Intrigued, Officer Huang presses him for more details on what tipped him off. He runs a hand over the ancient, decayed wood, calculating the timeline. They're less than 2 weeks from the murders. But Gao Yang points out the paradox. This place looks like it's been abandoned for decades. He thinks of the old man, a broken machine kept alive by some dark force, transforming on autopilot. Wang Zikai's ghost just floats there, completely lost, admitting he can't follow any of this. Gao Yang lays out the grim reality. This entire village is stuck on a horrifying repeat. For 30 years, they've been trapped in a cycle of massacre, burial, and rebirth. He insists their only way out is to figure out the exact moment the entire loop resets. But before they can even process this, a low, guttural growl echoes through the house. Officer Huang immediately moves to the window, peering out into the darkness. A monstrous, decaying face with burning red eyes stares right back at him. He realizes with dawning horror that it's not just one. An entire horde of the twisted villagers is shambling towards their hiding spot. They're completely surrounded, the grotesque faces pressing up against the glass. Fatty Jun loses it, demanding to know what in the hell these things want with them. But amidst the chaos, it all clicks for Gao Yang. The loop is tied to the night of the murders. He realizes Henry's family wasn't taken down by some lone beast in the woods. No, the entire village, twisted into monsters, had descended upon them. Sylvie draws her sword, a grim realization dawning on her. 5 of them, 5 dead family members, a perfect match. And that swarm outside isn't just wandering aimlessly. They're here to slaughter them all. Fatty June starts to panic, screaming that they need to run. But Sylvie coldly tells him it's already too late. Officer Huang agrees, cocking his pistol with steely resolve. Stepping outside would be an even faster death. Taking command, Gao Yang orders Fatty June to cover the back window. Officer Huang rallies Sylvie and Hank Wu, telling them they're holding the front. And as the horde closes in, Gao Yang calmly lights a cigarette, bracing for the inevitable fight. He flicks on a bare bulb, illuminating the grim scene inside. Gao Yang explains that while light won't stop them, they at least need to see their enemy. He quickly accesses his system, hoping for a new talent, but the unlock fails. Of course, just outside, the horde of monstrous villagers barrels toward the fragile house. The first one smashes through the barricade, roaring with hunger for human flesh. Its gnarled, clawed hand reaches for the doorknob, fumbling to get inside. But before it can, Officer Huang calmly raises his pistol and fires without a hint of hesitation. The bullet finds its mark, blasting through the creature's head and staggering it. Seizing the opening, Sylvie explodes into motion, a whirlwind of deadly grace. With a swift, arcing slash, she tears through the monster's chest, ending it instantly. But as the adrenaline surges, Wang Zikai looks down, wondering why his hands are trembling. Officer Huang's sharp voice cuts through his daze, demanding he pull himself together. Annoyed at his own weakness, he clenches his fist, turning fear into rage. With a defiant roar, he finally unleashes his pent-up frustration. He lunges forward, smashing a monster back into the crumbling barricade. But their reprieve is short-lived, as another creature claws its way through the splintered wood. Sylvie warns the others that the makeshift defense is about to give way completely, and right on cue, the entire barricade shatters as 2 hulking beasts burst inside. Officer Huang immediately engages one, holding it at bay as Sylvie prepares to strike. But another one lunges past them, its starving eyes locked directly on Wang Zikai. Wang Zikai is slammed against a cabinet, the impact rattling his bones. Before he can recover, the creature sinks its teeth deep into his shoulder. He lets out a raw scream of agony as blood bursts from the wound. But in that moment of pure pain, something inside him finally breaks. He grabs the monster's head, channeling all his fear into a crushing grip. Bones crack and teeth shatter as he squeezes with terrifying force. A cold, determined look replaces the panic in his eyes. With his free arm, he forms a sharp hand blade, ready to strike. He swings it down with a furious roar, a perfect arc of destruction. The chop connects, brutally smashing the monster's head against the wall. But the man who rises is not the one who fell. He stands transformed, a hulking figure of pure muscle. Gao Yang stares in disbelief, barely recognizing his friend as he whispers the name Kaiser. Even Sylvie senses it. Gripping her sword tightly, something is fundamentally wrong with him. With a grim expression, Kaiser declares that his buddy's friends are his friends, too. His body erupts with a golden aura, and he roars out a promise. Nobody touches his friends. As if on cue, the wall shatters, and a horde of infected villagers pour in, screaming for human flesh. Unfazed, Kaiser turns to the swarm, his eyes burning with rage as he promises to deal with every last one of them. He meets the first monster with a cataclysmic punch, bellowing a single command: "Get out!" The force of the blow sends the entire wave of creatures flying backward, a screaming tide of bodies. Gao Yang can only watch as Kaiser walks out into the chaos, desperately yelling for him to stay inside. From the doorway, Gao Yang can only scream at the impossible odds. There are just too many of them. But Kaiser is a force of nature, his fist smashing into the first creature with bone-shattering impact. He drives his arm clean through its torso, ending it in a single, brutal motion. Hoisting another monster into the air, he roars for the entire horde to quiet down. Then, with a sickening snap, he breaks its back over his shoulder, without a second thought. He stands alone amidst the fallen, a solitary wall against a tide of infected villagers. A fiery aura erupts around him as he dares the entire horde to come at him together. They answer his challenge, surging forward in a monstrous, screaming wave. One of the creatures lands a solid punch right against his ribs, but it's like hitting a steel wall. The blow has absolutely no effect on him. But even a titan can fall, as one of the monsters sinks its teeth deep into Kaiser's shoulder. A raw scream of agony escapes his lips, the first real sign of pain he's shown. Watching from the sidelines, Gao Yang realizes their main tank is being overwhelmed. They can't just let him fight alone. The bodies of the fallen are piling up, but the fight is far from over. In fact, a new, tougher-looking beast rises from the floor, a strange red mark glowing on its forehead. It lunges straight for Sylvie, ignoring the slash she just delivered. She stares in disbelief, wondering how it's even still moving, let alone attacking. Gao Yang leaps in to protect her, channeling her own power and roaring out the name. Blade God! He drives the glowing dagger down with all his might, aiming for a kill shot, but it just scrapes off the monster's scaly hide. Instead of a cry of pain, his failed attack only earns him a furious, blood-curdling roar. Having shrugged off the attack, the enraged beast winds up for a devastating counter. Its claws tear through Gao Yang's hoodie, ripping a bloody gash across his chest. The sheer force of the blow sends him flying backward, shattering a wooden support beam on impact. But before the monster can land a finishing strike, a gunshot cracks through the air. It's Officer Huang. The bullet slams right between the creature's eyes, stunning it for a crucial second. Sylvie seizes the opening he created, her eyes burning with lethal intent. With a powerful swing of her blade, she slices clean through its neck, sending the monster's head flying. Gao Yang collapses to the ground, gritting his teeth against the searing pain. Thankfully, Han Shujun is right there, his hands already glowing with healing energy over the wound. Officer Huang lowers his gun slightly, his sharp gaze fixed on Gao Yang, making sure he's okay. With his wound healed, Gao Yang gets to his feet, declaring he's nowhere near done yet. The team shares a moment of grim resolve. Officer Huang has a pregnant wife to get home to, and Gao Yang, well, he's got his own reasons. But their brief respite is shattered as a monstrous reptilian beast bursts through the wall. Officer Huang's face drains of color as he recognizes it. This isn't just any monster, it's a high-level slayer. Gao Yang notices a chilling resemblance to the demon from the hotel, only this one feels far more powerful. Taking the lead, he asks if everyone is ready to face this new nightmare. With a sharp go, the trio launches a coordinated attack, rushing the beast from all sides. Sylvie takes to the air, descending like an avenging angel with her sword aimed right for its neck. But the slayer is incredibly fast, its thick, scaly tail whipping around in a blur. It connects with a brutal smack, sending Sylvie flying sideways through the air. With Sylvie knocked aside, Officer Huang steps up, unleashing his own talent. Gun God! The specialized bullet slams into the slayer's head but simply sparks against its impossibly thick hide. The monster roars, more annoyed than injured, its rage now focused entirely on him. Before Huang can react, a massive clawed arm smacks him down with contemptuous ease. But that creates an opening, and Gao Yang is already there, driving his dagger into the beast's back. A piercing shriek echoes as the monster thrashes, trying to dislodge the attacker on its back. He grits his teeth. The scales are too tough. The blade won't go any deeper with his strength alone, so he calls on his phantom, a spectral double appearing to add its weight to the attack. Together, they force the dagger deeper, sending a fresh wave of agony through the creature. But pain only fuels its fury, as it whips its head around for a devastating counterattack. But the monster's tail whips around with brutal force, slamming into Gao Yang. He's sent flying backwards, crashing hard into the debris. Though wounded, the beast convulses on the floor, far from finished. Staggering to his feet, Gao Yang can only stare, realizing this thing is insanely overpowered. And that realization is confirmed as the monster's eyes snap open, burning with pure hatred. Across the room, Sylvie yells a warning while Officer Huang curses, his gun now uselessly empty. The team's healer, Han Shujun, slumps to the ground in despair, convinced they're all about to die. With a final, guttural roar, the creature lunges, charging straight for Gao Yang to end this. But just as it's about to strike, the dagger in its back erupts, sinking deeper on its own. The monster's claws freeze inches from his face. Its attack suddenly and inexplicably stopped. Gao Yang can only stare in disbelief at the frozen claws inches from his face. His eyes drift upward, his confusion turning to utter shock. A hulking figure has manifested from the monster's back, asking him if he's seriously still a virgin. Stunned, Gao Yang stammers out a yes, completely flabbergasted by the timing. The man, Kaiser, just grins, glad he didn't miss out, saying they're ride or die, after all. Then his expression hardens. With a roar, he grabs the monster's limbs. He unleashes his full strength, brutally tearing the creature's arms right out of their sockets. The monster lets out an unearthly shriek as its body is ripped apart. But Kaiser knows this tank isn't dead yet. He has to get in close to finish the job. Grasping its core, he clenches his fist, determined to crush it into nothing. With a sickening crunch, Kaiser obliterates the monster's core, its lifeless body slumping to the ground. Officer Huang and Sylvie scan the carnage, confirming to each other that it's finally over, they're all dead. The battle won, the adrenaline fades, and Kaiser's body finally gives out, slumping forward in exhaustion. Gao Yang cries out his name, his brief moment of relief shattered. He lunges forward just in time to catch his friend as he collapses to the ground. Kaiser looks up, a pained, self-deprecating smile on his face, admitting he thinks he really screwed up. What a joke he felt like he had the protagonist's plot armor handed to him and still managed to fail this badly. His voice grows weak, Admitting he can't go on anymore, he just needs to close his eyes for a second. Panic seizes Gao Yang as he screams at Kaiser, telling him not to, "You dare pass out." He begs him to hang on, to stay with him, his desperate cries echoing in the ruins of their battle. Holding his friend's limp body, Gao Yang screams at Han Shujun to snap out of it and get over here and help. The healer rushes to his side, but his eyes fixate on the two monstrous arms still embedded in Kaiser's chest. He looks up at Gao Yang, his face pale with dread, explaining there's no way he can heal a wound like this. With no time for debate, Gao Yang roars back that if that's the problem, then they need to come out. He grits his teeth and, with a brutal heave, rips the jagged foreign limb from his friend's torso himself. Tossing it aside, he immediately turns on Han Shujun, his voice cracking as he screams at him to heal Kaiser now. A soft turquoise light emanates from the healer's hands as he pours his energy into the gaping wound. But something's wrong. Gao Yang watches in horror as the flesh refuses to mend, yelling at him to focus. Han Shujun is sweating bullets, his face a mask of pure panic. He's trying, but his power is doing nothing. And all the while, Kaiser lies there, a faint, resigned smile on his face, as he slips further away. Wiping away tears, Han Shujun swears he's trying, but the damage is just too great. Gao Yang grabs him, desperate, screaming at him to keep going. He's not gone yet, but a heavy hand lands on his shoulder, and a voice tells him to please just stop. Officer Huang's expression is grim, his words quiet but final. Has gone. The world seems to fall away as Gao Yang stares down at Kaiser's lifeless body. He can't believe it. Has really, truly gone. And his mind drifts back to the first time they ever spoke. Kaiser, all charm and swagger, had heard of his skills and wanted to duo. Head sealed the deal with a confident thumbs up, promising they'd be an unbeatable combo. Memories of their easy friendship rush in, a stark contrast to the silent tragedy before him. He remembers Kaiser chiding him, always pushing him to be stronger. And in his final moments, Kaiser's last thought was clear. He knew they were truly brothers. But back in the present, Gao Yang tries to convince himself this twisted game is finally over. He tells himself there's no reason to grieve, so then why does it hurt so much? The others watch on, Sylvie acknowledging that in the end, it was a beast who saved them. But Officer Huang corrects her. Beast or human, the way Kaiser fought for them was real. Suddenly, a chilling system alert flashes extreme danger, boosting Gao Yang's luck multiplier 1,000 times. He snaps out of it, screaming that something ridiculously powerful is right here, and they need to run. Without a second thought, the survivors scramble up the stairs in a desperate flight, but Sylvie throws her arm out, halting their escape as she senses the overwhelming threat ahead. A strange hissing sound fills the air, pulling Sylvie's focus from the stairs. It's not coming from ahead, it's all around them. Gao Yang looks down in horror, screaming that the danger is right beneath their feet. The corpses of the possessed villagers are dissolving into nothingness. Black, ethereal tendrils rise from their decaying bodies, gathering into the air. The team looks up in stunned disbelief, a cold dread washing over them. It's the hair creature from that night, now revealing a horrifying skull at its core. They're exhausted and out of firepower, facing a monster they know is an absolute nightmare. Officer Huang wonders grimly if the Zodiac knew. But Gao Yang's expression hardens. This was never a test. He realizes they were sent here to be slaughtered. Sylvie's eyes burn with rage, the grim truth finally sinking in. They were disposable from the start. Guilt washes over her, believing she led them all to this nightmare. But Officer Huang refuses to let her carry that burden alone. The group's healer, Han Shujun, is the first to break, screaming that he's not going to die here. But his panic attracts the beast's attention, and with a sudden swoosh, dark tendrils snatch him from the ground. In the next instant, Officer Huang is caught too, desperately trying to cut himself free as he orders the others to run. Gao Yang knows it's useless. There's nowhere left to run. This is where they make their last stand. He puts every ounce of his strength into a desperate swing with his shovel, only for the hair to stop it dead, lashing out to slice across his chest like steel wire. It's over in a flash, as the entire team is bound and lifted into the air, completely helpless. A cold dread fills Officer Huang as he realizes that even Sylvie's legendary Blade God ability is failing against this monster. But even as she's being overwhelmed, Sylvie tries to find an opening in the sea of hair. The tendrils are just too fast, wrapping around her limbs and pulling her back. She realizes cutting them is pointless. They just regenerate from an endless source. Then, a desperate thought cuts through the panic. It has to have a weak point. The skull, as if summoned by her thoughts, the monstrous skull reveals itself. The true master of the hair. Bound but not broken, Sylvie focuses all her power into a single command for her metal talent. Her blade flies from its sheath, a silver streak aimed right at the creature's core. It plunges deep into the bone, a seemingly perfect strike right between the eyes. But with an impossible clang, her sword is violently repelled, bouncing off the skull's surface. Sylvie can only watch in horror as her final, desperate gamble amounts to nothing. Even Officer Huang can't believe it. The skull's defense is just that absolute. The monster itself seems to relish in their despair, whispering a single, chilling command, "Die." With a violent whoosh, the hair flings Sylvie into the air as Han Shujun screams her name in terror. Then, a thick tendril of hair slams forward, brutally impaling her straight through the chest. The skull's eyes glow with triumph as it declares her beautiful hair now belongs to it. Watching her fall, something inside Gao Yang snaps, and he screams inwardly for the system. Hess going all in, calling on every last luck point Hess painstakingly accumulated. With no time for second thoughts, he commands it to unlock a new talent, skipping all confirmations. The system grants his wish. Pyro, 2-5 reinforcement, as he pours every remaining point into his spirit stat. And as the monster's hair continues to crush him, Gao Yang's hand erupts in a torrent of brilliant flame. With a furious roar, Gao Yang commands his newfound power to burn all of it. A massive jet of fire erupts from his hand, rocketing toward the hair, ensnaring Sylvie. The flames connect with a deafening boom, instantly vaporizing the dark tendrils. Caught in the inferno, the skull monster can only scream as its pride and joy turns to ash. The fiery explosion engulfs the creature, and the sudden release sends everyone plummeting. Officer Huang is shocked to find himself free, realizing the fire forced the monster to let go. Han Shujun, on the other hand, is just a terrified man in freefall, screaming for help. He spots Gao Yang on the ground, and desperately calls out to him. With no other options, he stretches out his hand, begging to be caught. But he completely misses, smashing into the ground with a painful thud. While Officer Huang smashes into the ground, Han Shujun lands with an even more pathetic faceplant. But as the others fall, Gao Yang spots Sylvie plummeting towards him, helpless. He moves in a flash, catching her securely in his arms before she can hit the ground. Sprawled out nearby, Han Shujun whines in outrage that Gao Yang saved the pretty girl but not him. Gao Yang ignores him, gently setting Sylvie down as she warns him to be careful. A lethal strand of hair whips through the air, aimed directly at his exposed back. But the attack freezes just inches away, held by an unseen force. Gao Yang's expression turns to ice. He's done playing games. Grabbing the hair tendril, he informs the monster that its time is up. With a furious roar, he unleashes the full might of his flames. A torrent of fire erupts from his clenched fist, incinerating the strands of hair. And in that moment of crisis, a notification appears. His flame talent has leveled up. The demonic hair recoils in pain, scorched and seared by the sudden inferno. But Gao Yang isn't letting it get away, snatching the tendril before it can retreat. The monster yanks back with incredible force, pulling him helplessly into the air. He becomes a human kite, soaring through the sky with one hand blazing like a comet. From below, Officer Huang realizes the kid's insane plan. He's using the hair to reel himself in. The monster's grotesque face looms into view, ready to devour him in midair. Dangling helplessly, Gao Yang curses its blinding speed, knowing he can't possibly dodge. But in a flash, a brilliant slash of blue light cuts through the air to intercept. It's Sylvie's blade, imbued with her power, slicing through the black tendrils to free him. Gao Yang looks back in shock, stunned to see she's still fighting. On the ground below, she lies gravely wounded, having used her metal ability at the last possible second. With fading strength, she whispers his name, knowing she has only one shot left to give. He sees the faces of his entire team, all of them beaten and broken. This is their only chance to get out alive. Focusing all his resolve, Gao Yang ignites his hand with a furious, crackling flame. He becomes a human comet, screaming as he rockets straight into the monster's gaping mouth. With a final roar, he unleashes everything, determined to burn this creature to absolute ash. The skull lets out a pained hiss as the inferno scorches its very being from the inside out. But the sheer force of the blowback sends him reeling, blood spraying from his lips. But the tendril smashes right through his chest, and a cold dread washes over him. It wasn't enough. He's flung into the air like a rag doll, realizing with despair that the gap between them is just too great. The monster begins to reel him in, pulling him back towards its gaping, skeletal mouth. From below, Officer Huang and Fatty Jun can only scream his name in pure, helpless terror. Suddenly, strange, glowing feathers begin to drift around Gao Yang as he hangs on the edge of consciousness. Miles away, in a secluded, sun-dappled forest, a presence makes itself known. A mysterious figure in a red demon mask stands ready, his hand already a blur of motion. With a single, impossibly fast slash, he unleashes a blade of pure energy into the air. The attack crosses the distance in an instant, severing the thick tendril of hair and freeing Gao Yang. Enraged, the skull monster lets out a furious roar, its prey snatched away at the very last second. Just as Gao Yang plummets towards the ground, his mysterious savior swoops in. The masked man effortlessly catches him mid-air, neutralizing his fall. Holding the injured boy, he seems almost impressed, noting that he held on for quite a while. Gao Yang, weak and bleeding, can only manage to ask who this person is. The man lifts his mask, revealing a calm smile as he introduces himself. Zodiac Skyhound. With Gao Yang safely behind him, Skyhound declares he'll handle the rest from here. He unleashes another blast of energy, but the enraged skull monster retaliates, trapping the attack in a cage of hair. Skyhound watches, completely unfazed by the monster's power, and simply calls for backup. Suddenly, a girl with a baseball bat rushes into the clearing, sighing with annoyance. She pulls down her rabbit-themed mask, muttering for her partner to stop rushing her. This girl, White Rabbit, makes her entrance, blasting off the ground like a rocket. Down below, Fatty Jun and another survivor look on with pure, unadulterated relief. She rides a wave of crackling energy, playfully taunting the monster as its hair whips toward her. Mask back on, she hoists her bat, channeling power for what she calls a grand slam, and with a brutal smash, she connects, driving her bat straight into the creature's face. The sheer force of the blow sends the monster crashing down into the forest floor. Its skull lies broken in a crater, wisps of dark energy smoking from the wreck. But it's not quite dead, as the head begins to crawl, desperately trying to reassemble itself. Suddenly, a new voice comments on how beaten up their ally is, offering to fix him. A confident man with spiky red hair steps out, mentioning a very peculiar type of electric healing. With a casual snap of his fingers, Hank Wu summons a crackle of raw power. A colossal bolt of lightning tears through the sky, crashing down upon the monster's remains. The skull is engulfed in a torrent of electricity, its dark energy vaporizing into smoke. From the dissipating cloud, a strange, spiky green orb the monster's core is ejected. Hank catches it, his confident smirk replaced by genuine shock as he discovers rune circuits inside. But White Rabbit has no time for trophies. She's desperately tending to Sylvie's life-threatening wound. The masked swordsman calls out, pointing to a nearby building, saying someone else is inside, barely alive. Hank scoffs, telling him to leave it, dismissing the person as just another delusion beast. Suddenly, a bloody hand grabs his leg. It's Gao Yang, insisting that's no beast, but his friend. Hank is furious, berating the boy for saving others while he's dying himself, as Gao Yang weakly pleads for help.